All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the, what is today? Is it Wednesday, June 15, 2022, meeting of the Finance Executive Committee. I'm Alex Wan. I serve as chair of the committee. I'm joined by my colleagues. To my right, Mr. Howard Shook, who's vice chair. To his right, Mr. Jason Dozier, and then to his far right, Mr. Jason Winston. With that, we constitute a quorum. The meeting is now officially called to order. Colleagues, I understand, we're also joined by our esteemed Council President, Doug Shipman. Colleagues, I understand that we're having a little bit of sluggishness with e-boardroom right now, so we are trying to get that up and running. In the interim, I guess since we can't take any actions in terms, let me go ahead and walk through a couple of things today to try and buy them a little bit of time. First thing is, in terms of the agenda, we do have, when we're able to take actions, we do have walk-in legislation today that is associated with HR we're adding it to the agenda simply because of timing on the cycles, the legislative cycles. And then also, Ms. Kempson-Wright, do we still need to also take the amendment in terms of the dual referred? Okay. Yeah, the walk-in is a first read. Yes, correct. Thank you. Also, we will have a presentation for the third quarter financial report, but the COVID-19 funds report has been shared in written form only. If you have any questions, I invite you to ask, go to the departments directly. And then finally, we're going to take all of the budget items together at the end of the agenda. They're placed that way, but just know that we will take care of all the other business that we have before us first, get that out of the way, and then we can focus completely on the budget items. As I mentioned in previous meetings, as well as in other communications, it's my intent today that we are going to grind through all of the adjustments, amendment changes to all the budget-related papers, including the millage rate, the budget itself, as well as the personnel paper, and that there have been instances in the past where this committee has moved a budget forward with no recommendation, but I would like for us to take a position on the budget as we hopefully finish that today and send it forward with a recommendation to Tuesday, June 21st meeting. We're also joined by Council Member Liliana Bakhtiari. All right, does that buy enough time for e-boardroom or no? Almost? Okay. With that, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I wanted to bring up. I'll also, while we're doing this, in terms of public comment, I'll go ahead and just say that in committee, you've got a time limit of 3 minutes, and there will be a timer on the screens so that when you go to the podium and start speaking, please mind that, and as your 3 minutes are winding down, I ask that you wind your comments down as well. If you have more comments and you have them in written form, please just leave that, either email that to us or leave a printed copy, and we'll make sure that gets shared and entered into the record. I've run out of things to dance to up here. Okay, and then actually one last thing that I'll announce, and then colleagues, if there's no objection, we'll go ahead and entertain our public comment now. But the final thing is at 6 o'clock this evening in Chambers, we will have our third and final millage budget, FY23 budget millage rate hearing. So that will be one more opportunity for the public to comment on this year's budget. Okay. I'm sorry? It's supposed to be for the mill rate, but I've been entertaining questions if folks want on other topics. So to the extent that we can answer them with the people in the room. All right, so with that, let's go ahead and we're going to just buy a little bit more time on the e-boardroom. We'll go ahead and do our public comment now. With that, I'll invite Ron Shakir up to the podium. Mr. Shakir, again, actually, we don't have a timer up there. Can you put a timer, Rob? Okay. All right. So,
good.
Hold on a second. Let's get the timer up, and then.
I don't mind. I just talk to you, get it up. My name is Ron Shakir.
You said, okay.
We're good, okay?
Are we? Yep. Go ahead. Go ahead.
My name is Ron Shakir, and I didn't mean to be down here this long today, but I tell you, I'm just kind of overwhelmed sometimes when I see the planning of this city with these new, or seem like it's a go forward, this new mobile rail system that I don't believe the citizens know that is a go. And throughout this city, it's going to be zigzagging and wagging all over the city, and it's nowhere in the country. Nowhere in the country are they doing this. And I'm pretty sure it's going to break and continue to disrupt families and communities. It does not lend itself to stabilize communities, which was a kind of hope, a vision that people would see, especially African Americans saw Atlanta at this stable community place in the South, not too far from home, or Alabama, Mississippi, or other parts in the South, South Carolina, what have you. But now we are wrecking communities with these here transportation concepts that the people are getting more and more left out on. The idea that other cities have said 10 and 12 years ago, it's too expensive, this rail concept. But Atlanta, boy, if you got Atlanta on your name, then you looked as an idea that you're doing something right. But Atlanta, world, city beware, Atlanta is doing something wrong right now. And it's hard to even talk about it, Mr. Chair. Every committee engagement with the city of Atlanta has been cut off and down, down. Presentations, there was public comments. After every public comments, besides, a regular on the agenda, but presentations, there was comments. Y'all won't believe this here, but before legislation was voted on, a person can rise from their seat and ask questions on that, and council people used to be able to respond. Many of them probably don't have 100 meetings under their hat, but if you would just trace back 8 years ago or so, prior to Cascade Reed, there was great public engagement, but it's less tolerance for it today. I think we have become a greater city. Part of that democracy, that United States of America, the hope and the dream, is when the public and the citizens is a part of the process. And right now, the city of Atlanta, and with your hands, is taking that out and taking us backwards. We can do better.
Thank you, Mr. Shakir. Next up is Edith Latipo.
Thank you for this opportunity to speak. I haven't been down here in a long time, but a lot of people have been concerned and have raised questions to me as to why communities are not engaged in the process for determining their destiny in their own community. And it's shocking to me when I come down here and I see that we no longer have council district hearings. We no longer have an opportunity for people to know what's going on in their community. We no longer have the voices of the community speaking. Number one, I also came down here to address this whole thing about the taxes and the combination of taxes and solid waste. The Constitution gives us the right to own property, but the city of Atlanta is taking that right away by incorporating both taxes and solid waste in one lump sum. And in order to pay their taxes, they also have to pay their solid waste charges. If they don't pay those solid waste charges, they're stuck with a FIFA. And every quarter or every so many months, another FIFA is attached to that, and eventually their property is sold on the courthouse steps. This, to me, is unconstitutional. The Constitution says that they cannot be You cannot just take a property away from people because of any kinds of things that may hinder them from paying their taxes. But yet we're putting in place a system that really puts a hardship on people, especially seniors. No other county, no other city, East Point, College Park, small cities, they don't do that. They pay their taxes separate from their solid waste charges. And we are combining them and making a hardship for people to own property and to maintain their property. So that's one thing. The second thing is I just want to make an announcement for those who don't know that the Cascade Springs Nature Preserve is a program that I started many, many years ago under Maynard Jackson. That property has been taken away from the community, taken away from citizens, and they don't have any say-so in what goes on. For example, this multimodal program, we just found out today that they're talking about tearing up Cascade Road and putting in multimodal system. That's unfair. Number one, there's 135 acres of property over there, and that means that that's a regional park. So why is only a few people making the decisions about what happens at that park? This is a violation of Civil Rights Act. It's a violation of the Environmental Justice Act, and we need to address it and stop pouring money in places, in projects that is eliminating African Americans and people of color.
Thank you, Ms. Ladapo. Colleagues, that concludes our public comment. We've also been joined by Councilmember Michael Julian. Thank you. All right, so with that, e-boardroom is now up, so we can go back and begin taking the appropriate actions per the agenda. So the first item is the adoption of the agenda. Need a motion to amend. I'll make the motion to amend the agenda to add the walk-in. Can I get a second, please?
Second.
Seconded by Dozier. Are we ready to take the vote to amend the agenda?
We can take a voice vote, please.
All right. All right.
Councilmember Winston?
Aye.
Councilmember Dozier?
Aye.
Councilmember Shook? Councilmember Bond? Aye. Councilmember Wan?
Aye.
Thank you. Councilmember Bakhtiari? Thank you.
All right.
The motion to amend is before you.
With 7 yeas, 0 nays, motion carries. The agenda is amended. I'll make a motion to adopt the amended agenda. Can I get a second, please? Seconded by Shook. Voice vote on that too, Ms. Kempson-Wright?
The vote is open. 1 second. The vote is open. We'll take a voice vote.
Okay.
Councilmember Winston?
Aye.
Councilmember Dozier?
Aye.
Councilmember Bakhtiari? Aye. Mr. Shook? Mr. Bond? Aye. And Mr. Wan?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, 7 yeas, 0 nays, motion carries. The amended agenda is adopted. Next item is approval of the minutes. Move to approve, seconded by Shook. Voice vote again.
Yes, please.
Aye.
Councilmember Winston? Aye. Councilmember Dozier? Aye. Councilmember Bakhtiari? Aye. Councilmember Shook? Councilmember Bond? Aye. Councilmember Wan?
Aye.
Thank you.
So 7 yeas, 0 nays, motion carries. The minutes are approved. We've taken care of public comment. That next takes us to presentations. And what is up is Department of Finance third quarter financial report. I don't know if CFO Ball or Deputy CFO Wilson will be doing the presentation.
Good afternoon, Finance Exec Council members. Mohammed Bala, Chief Financial Officer, City of Atlanta, and today we'll be going over the third quarter financial results. This is for the 9-month period ended March. Ms. Wilson will go over giving an overview of the first 9 months, preceded by Chief Davis, who will go over the revenue section, and followed by Chief Bell to go over our expenses. And finally, Ms. Wilson will cover our debt and investment portfolio. The good news overall over the first 9 months of the year is that we are trending in a positive direction. We have seen the impacts of COVID alleviated this year, and we're happy to share those results. And I'll now turn it over to CFO Wilson.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon. Okay, so you see on the screen the agenda as CFO Bala covered. We'll go over the third quarter, reviewing the governmental funds, proprietary funds, and finish out with the debt and investment portfolios. To begin, we just want to review that we'll cover the period of July through March 2022, provide a summary analysis of the city's budget to actual performance, forecast projected revenue and expenditure activity, and explain variances, identify and address significant issues that may have an impact on year-end, and account for legislative items adopted and foreseen. This slide just gives you a summary of the key points, beginning with the left side, looking at revenues. Property tax and local option sales tax are on track to exceed our budget and forecast that we began with in FY 2022. Two highly sensitive COVID-impacted revenue categories are expected to return to pre-COVID levels, and those are the alcoholic beverage taxes and fines and penalties. While the hotel-motel taxes do continue to rebound, they're not quite yet at the pre-COVID levels. Licenses and permits revenue is driven by deferred license renewals from FY 2021 into FY 2022 through the course of some extensions to the deadline that we had during last year. So as of the third quarter, the year-end projected revenue surplus is about $93.5 million, or 14.5% of the operating revenue budget, and about half of that is attributable to the licenses and permits timing from FY 21 to 22. On the expense side, we have three main expense categories that are at risk of ending the year over budget. Those are personnel and employee benefits, purchase contract services, and supplies. And as of the third quarter, the year-end projected expense overrun is about $7 million, or 1% of the operating expense budget. On your far right, you'll see a year-end look ahead, and this is an early picture of what we think will exhibit a year-end fund balance impact. So we have a projected surplus between revenue overruns and the expense overrun of about 86.5. And then we have some one-time transfers from fund balance, which you'll see listed there, totaling 33.5. Next, I will turn it over to Chief Davis to go through the revenue slide in more detail.
Thank you. We have been joined by Ms. Keisha Shawn Waits. Continue.
Thank you. I will direct your attention to on this slide to the category FY22 fund budget. At the bottom portion of this column, you will see that the total FY22 general fund budget is $751 million, which includes $55 million of federal subsidies from the American Rescue Plan, $33 million of uncommitted fund balance, and $16 million in committed fund balance from the planning department. Absent these federal subsidies, the fund budget transfers, the general operating budget is $647 million. The third quarter actuals, as shown at the bottom portion of the column labeled FY22 actuals, is $632 million, which represents 84.1% of the total budget and 97.7% of the operating budget. Our revenue projections for the remaining 3 months of the fiscal year is $109 million and equates to a FY22 year-end operating forecast of $740 million, which is an increase of 14.5% or $94 million above the above the $647 in the operating budget. This $94 million increase in the year-end projection above the operating budget is primarily results of an extraordinary collectible fiscal year in several key revenue categories. Leading the way in the revenue categories is property tax. Currently, property tax has exceeded the budget amounts by 7.4%, which can be attributed to the rise in the property values from market demands and the new constructions. Our second category is public utilities, alcohol, beverage, and other taxes, which are at 99.5% of the budget and is on pace to exceed the budget amount by 10.8%. This projected increase is due to the uptick in the title ad valorem taxes from rising automobile sales pricing and alcohol by the drink tax from the discontinuation of the COVID restrictions on restaurants. The third category is the local option sales tax. This revenue is at 91.5% of the budget and is on track to exceed the budget by 16.8%. This revenue category has continued to trend upward and remain favorable based on the shift from in-person shopping to online during the pandemic. Our fourth category is license and permits, which has exceeded the budget amount by 11.5%, and this is primarily due to the prior year business license revenues being deferred because of a delay in the revenue process during the pandemic. The fifth category is fines and penalties. This revenue has exceeded the budget amount by 86.9% and is due to an increase in traffic and parking fines revenues from resumption of the parking citation enforcements and the reopening of our court system. And finally, hotel and motel tax. This revenue category is at 96.5% of the budget and is on track to exceed the budget amount by 49.9%, which can be credited to the recent recovery in the travel and tourism industry and our new occupancy tax charged to the short-term rentals. Despite the positive performance of these revenue categories just stated, the revenue categories of other revenues and indirect costs are projected to fall below the budgeted amounts. The negative impact from the other revenue is due to investment losses as interest rates have trended towards zero, for over a year, as well as the indirect cost revenue has declined because of a reduction from a change in the annual indirect cost recovery plan. Thus, these two categories will offset some of the increases projected overall in the third quarter. In conclusion of our third quarter projection, it is evidence that there have been improvements to some of the revenue categories that were initially impacted by the pandemic. These improvements have been critical to the city's financial recovery from the peak stages of the pandemic. And as always, the forecast and analysis team will continue to closely monitor these revenues and trends for potential impacts from changes from the pandemic and the economic conditions. I will now turn the next presentation over to the Budget Chief, Charles Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Charles Bell again, Budget Chief for the Office of Budget and Fiscal Policy in the Finance Department. I want to take an opportunity to talk to you about the expense performance. Here you see before you how we classify the performance. In this particular slide, we look at it in terms of major account groups. Again, the budget funded at this point, $751.4 million. The table shows 9 months of expenses at $536.7 million, which is 71% of the $751.4 million. While this is 4% shy of the straight line basis at 75%, our look ahead for the fourth quarter equals $221.7 million, and you can see that number on the presentation in the fourth numeric column. Our year-end forecast, when you add everything up there, comes to $758.4 million, and that indicates a deficit forecast of $7 million. As we look at the forecasted year-end performance by major category, we see the notes to the right portion of the slide, highlighting the details behind the lofty deficits. $6 million in personnel, which is actually 65% of the total, $2.9 for purchase contract services, $3.2 million in the account group category entitled supplies. Basically, these three categories are partially offset via savings of $2.1 million and $1.9 million in interfund, interdepartmental charges, and other cost categories, respectively. As we turn our attention there to personnel, looking at overtime first, the heavier concentrations are in fire, corrections, and ADOT, $1.9 million, $1 million, and $695,000, respectively. Extra help, executive offices, police, corrections, fire, and parks, $1.7 million, $2.5 million, $440,000, $320,000, and $332,000, respectively. Group health, deficits are spread throughout the departments. Basically, what's happened here is the budget was underfunded. We have taken that to heart and put forward a better effort to take care of that so that we don't have a repeat performance in FY23. ARP premium pay, whose costs were absorbed without being budgeted, and then partial offsets of roughly $17.3 million in salaries and workers' comp. Purchase contract services, looking at litigation and law, and telecommunications expense and AIM. Supplies, combined deficit performances in utilities, uniforms, consumable tracking supplies, and for the most part, we're really looking at police in terms of things like when we talk about consumable trackable supplies, ammunition and replacement parts for SWAT weapons, small equipment purchases such as repair parts for gun range, parts for mock obstacle courses, and the like. Turning our attention down to interfund and interdepartmental charges, we show a year-end underrun of $2.1 million. After discussing this with Fleet, we understand that the expenditures have slowed due to, number one, short staffing hampering the rate of vehicle repair, and then secondly, outside contractors incurring the same type situation. And lastly, Fleet lets us know that they're a little bit behind in terms of cost allocations. Debt service and other financing uses, we're basically looking at an offset. You'll see $18.7 million for debt service, followed by a deficit of $18.338 million in other financing uses. So as we pay our principal and interest, that's where you see the 18.7, and the offset at the 18.38 comes in other financing uses. In one sense, we're making payments. In the other sense, we're properly classifying the costs, and so they tend to offset one another. At any rate, we're looking at just over a $7 million deficit. As we turn our attention to the next slide, we're looking at similar situations, except that in this case we're looking at the variances by department. Yes, we do have several departments that are forecasted to have deficit balances, but we pretty much zero in on 3 or 4 of them. The first, as you see there in the right margin, is AIM. $3.9 million, and of course I just mentioned we're looking at telecommunication expenses with telephone and wireless charges. Law, we're basically talking about outside counsel, and then the Department of Transportation, we're looking at personnel matters. You heard during the budget hearing that they were focusing for a while during the fiscal year at right sizing as far as they were concerned their personnel costs, or should I say filling their vacancies. Now, I additionally want to address corrections. As you see there, it lists the deficit forecast of just over $1 million, about $1,035,000. This year, personnel was restored in corrections, but was not optimally funded. Hence, the department has had to utilize unanticipated extra help and overtime services, and that totals out to be what we think will be roughly $465,000. As well, corrections needed additional funding for its catering and medical services, we're estimating that it will finish up around $400,000 and $170,000 respectively. As we turn our attention to, well, I should say we'll go to the next slide, which enters the land of what we refer to as proprietary funds overview. Here we're talking about the enterprise fund projections. Leading off with aviation's budget, which is $453.1 million, we'll see a positive margin of $71.7 million through the first 9 months. Expenses will exceed revenue in the fourth quarter by an estimated $25.4 million. Year-end revenue exceeds expenses by about $46.3 million. As you look at the box down in the left corner, highlights of aviation, you'll notice that aviation expenses projected to finish at $48.4 million under budget, where several contracts are delayed or deferred until FY23 in the areas of security, airfield, maintenance, parking, marketing, building management, or direct payments to contractors by the airlines. I wanted to highlight that point because as you look at that box, you'll see about 5 lines down, we talk about $34.7 million in contractual services and underrun of the expense budget. Similarly, Watershed has a kind of same type situation, so I'll go from the bottom up. As you look at that box down there, the one in the middle where we talk about water and wastewater revenue for the year, there's a positive margin of $137.9 million actually through the first 9 months. The trend would continue through the fourth quarter of this year, and it would be a positive margin of 23.6. The year-end revenue is expected to exceed expenses by $161.5 million. But what I'm pointing out again in that box down there in the middle, Watershed notes that many of their contracts are for plant maintenance, but also other Department of Watershed Management services. Due to timing of the agreements and procurement guidelines, funds are encumbered for upcoming contracts while active agreements are nearing the end of the term or are in a renewal phase and may not become an expenditure during the course of the year. Lastly, we talk about solid waste. As we look at solid waste, we're looking at a budget of about $66.9 million. Expenses exceeded revenue through the first 9 months at a clip of about $10.6 million. Solid waste is projected to rebound in the fourth quarter, where revenues will exceed expenses by $12.2 million. Year-end revenue will exceed expenses by about $1.6 million. And as you look at the numbers there in their box, you'll see how that reconciles back to that 1.6 with 3.9 in revenue and 2.3 in expenses. At this time, I will turn it back over to our CFO and Deputy CFO. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Bell. As we turn our attention to the debt and investment slide, beginning with the investment portfolio, despite the continued volatility and rapidly rising interest rate environment, we continue to hold to our guiding principle of safety, liquidity, and lastly, yield on the city's investment dollars. This means that we maintain a balanced approach to investing in a variety of securities, including 33% in U.S. agencies, 28% in municipal bonds, 23% in Georgia Fund 1, and 16% in U.S. Treasuries. With the rapid rise in interest rates, we expect the opportunities to earn higher yields across our portfolio to continue in this market environment. However, on the debt side, we pay for these rising interest rates in terms of the cost of our bond issuances. So it costs us more to borrow funds and diminish savings when we have refundings. But we constantly monitor the debt portfolio across our enterprise funds and the city's GO bonds for opportunities to refinance and save money. And we've recently done an airport new money issue and an upcoming refunding in the market. And will see finally on the last slide our rating agency, our ratings, our bond ratings across the board with our GL, wastewater, airport bonds, and in good standing there. We haven't had a downgrade or change in quite some time. That concludes our presentation, and we will take questions.
All right, colleagues, with that, I'll entertain any questions. Oh, and we've also been, I'm sure if Shook recognized, we've been joined by Councilmember Keisha Waits. Councilmember Dozier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For once, I don't have a question about inflation, but I do have a question about just with the news today about the Fed hiking interest rates 75 basis points. I think yesterday there was news that the 30-year mortgage average is now up to just over 6%. I know you alluded to the investment portfolio yield and us being conservative as a city. But any concern, I mean, one of the things that I've at least read has been, with mortgage rates being up, we can expect to see a cooling of the real estate market, and just recognizing that so much of our city's revenues comes from property taxes. I'm just curious if as far as the finance office, if that's being accounted for in your modeling for revenues and those Q4 projections. I'm just curious how y'all are accounting for some of these macroeconomic trends in our financial health. Does that make sense? I'm not a finance guy, so I'm trying to ask that question as articulately as I can, but does that make sense?
And I'll try to answer your question. I think in the market for mortgages, how it will impact, or how we would see or impact on property taxes. Since our property taxes are based on assessed value, the mortgage activity per se won't have a direct impact, but values of the properties themselves. So if we wouldn't see it on the mortgage interest rate side, we would see more on the property assessment valuation side. So if there is slower activity in the market, fewer people are buying homes, which that has driven up costs, driven up rates or values of properties, we'll see a slowdown there, but it is something that we'll continue to monitor in the market when it comes to how we do our property tax revenue projections. And also, it's something we consider on our investment side. When I mentioned the investment portfolio, as our investments come to maturity and we have an opportunity to reinvest in higher yielding opportunities, we do that. So we take advantage on the investment side, and we're cautious on the debt side, obviously with interest rates rising. But those are some of the factors that we definitely consider in a challenging economic environment.
Thank you. And just for the public record, I was a humanities major, so I struggle with a little bit of this sometimes. So I appreciate that response. Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Shook, followed by Bakhtiari.
We do that.
Yeah, thank you. Please refresh us as to the city methodology for purchasing fuel and what effect, if any, the current spike at the gas pumps have had.
In a challenging economic environment. So
Thank you. And just for the public record,
I may have to defer to fleet services on the actual purchase of fuel and how they buy in bulk through various pipelines. But we are in lots of contact with Deputy Commissioner over there who
And what effect, if any, the
is concerned about rising fuel prices. We certainly are aware of the impact it has on but the way they go about purchasing, I would have to let fleet services actually respond to that.
I mean, I know there's a lag. I just don't know if the lag is going to be protective enough, given it looks like we may be in for a kind of a longer slog through this than any of us would like. And then it's not just fuel, but oil-based other oil-based products. So, if the answer's not available today, that's fine. If someone could get back to us, with a halfway decent answer to that question, I think we'd appreciate it. Thank you. If the lag is going
Councilmember Bakhtiari.
enough, given it looks like
Thank you, Councilmember Shook, for putting the bar at halfway decent.
this, then any of us would like. I mean, it's not just
So one of my questions kind of piggybacks off of Councilmember Dozier, and
if the answer's not available today.
the issue that, as I'm looking at the quarterly report and some of how we've gone over on budget on a couple of things,
Answer that question.
my concern comes down to, I think we said this a million times, but procurement and inflation rates for construction costs, et cetera. And I'm curious because I know that as a result, ATL DOT has had to go over budget. I know that many of the departments have gone over budget because of our bid out process and everything else. And I'm curious, one, if the and the inflation rates that we're looking at as a result of, short supply, et cetera, everything that's going on. And secondly, do we have on-call contractors that we're able to, is that, forgive me, I'm still learning, so if that's not possible or somehow illegal with fixed bidding, I don't know, but do we have people on call that we're able to forward larger or faster fixes to that helps cut down on those inflation costs and that we're able to do with outsourcing when it comes to, or in-house when it comes to some of these fixes?
I believe Dean has a paper on the agenda today, actually, that has something similar to what you're speaking about, a Group A and a Group B, quasi-on-call contractors that do certain work, but when we get to that paper, I'm sure they can elaborate more on that. But those are a handful of contractors that they would have a not-to-exceed amount for.
And could you elaborate on what Dean would oversee with those contracts? What does that touch on?
I believe Dean has a paper on the agenda today, actually. I don't have the paper right in front of me, but Dean has two papers today that are on the agenda for FEC that will, I believe, address your question.
Okay.
And the specifics around what type of work that the contractors are being asked to do.
Yeah, because I'm also curious as to some of the larger construction pieces, like larger pieces of repaving, speed tables, et cetera. Some of the trails that we're building that are larger projects that we have inflation of costs going up because of some of those processes. And I don't have the. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Good afternoon, Remy C2, Commissioner Dean. Yes, we do have a job order contracting mechanism in place. We have a large and a small. We have the small goes up to $5 million and the large goes up to $25 million. So we have about 26 contractors already on contract with the city to do various things, and we're actually about to go back out to rebid that contract so we can be ready for the infrastructure projects that are coming down the road. But we do have contractors in place to do work that affect all areas of work. $5 million and the large goes up to $25 million.
Thank you.
So we have about 26 contractors already on contract with the city to do various things. And we're
just a quick question on page 15 regarding credit ratings. I was curious if there is a time frame for regularly where we expect a regular review, or if there's been any indication of special review on any of these categories given changes in the interest rate environment.
I haven't heard of any specially called reviews, but we did have a review probably about a month ago with the rating agencies, and there was no change in the ratings at that time.
Frame for regularly where we expect a regular review.
I have just two questions here. I mean, looking at page 9. We're kind of doing this backwards. Typically, we would like to have done this before we went into the budget process to make sure that the trends we're seeing here are reflected in the budget request. But the two that jump out are AIM and law, which are have the explanation. But let's take law first. So it's because we're of use of outside counsel, but I don't see a commensurate adjustment to the FY23 budget, and I'm assuming it's kind of same with AIM in terms of the telecommunications expense. Does that mean they're going to adjust their activities accordingly? Was that maybe the better way of framing this was that a conversation that finance had with the departments based on these numbers in preparing the request for 23?
Yeah, so we took into consideration, and it's a great question. So for AIM's budget, we specifically added $2 million for telecom expense to address a historic issue of running over that line item in the budget. So we have made an accommodation for AIM in FY23. As far as law and outside counsel, it is a bit fluid because the amount of needed outside counsel will vary from year to year. So there hasn't been a material change there just because there's uncertainty around the amount of ups and downs that outside counsel will be required.
Okay. I appreciate, thank you for, I noticed that now that you pointed out, did you see the increase in AIM? I guess I'm a little troubled by the law situation because while I understand what you're saying, it does feel like the reasons we've been going to outside counsel are because of more complex transactions or litigation or cases. And maybe I'm just being skeptical, but I'm not sure I see a decline in that level of activity based on kind of our activities as a city, but duly noted. But I guess going back to my fundamental question, though, I mean, is that part of the process whereby y'all loop in, I know you use it for salaries and personnel, and I appreciate that, but all the others as well, if there's someone running a much higher or a certain percentage threshold over budget at this point in the year, is there a conversation in preparing the request for 23 that takes that into consideration?
Yeah, and there are a couple of factors that we take into consideration, and trends are, historical trends and actuals are a part of that conversation, as well as the economic environment and other factors, as well as conversations with the departments that, things that we may not be aware of that they know are coming on the horizon. So those are a number of factors that we'll take into consideration as we build the budget and have those that dialogue with them so that we can accommodate their operational needs as closely matched as possible.
Okay. I mean, it's a good thing that based on the projections where we'll end up in FY23, we have a lot of cushion and room to move in terms of overages and underages. But, as we move into the next fiscal year and the conversations are happening around inflation, potential recession, we may not have that same luxury, so that discipline is important. All right, any other questions from my colleagues before Mr. Bond, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I kind of want to follow up on a tangent of what Mr. Wan was talking about as far as acquiring outside expertise, whether it's DEEM or the law department or some other department. Is there ever, and should there be an analysis of the cost of what it cost us to bring in people from the outside versus what it would have cost us to either pay our employees or hire employees with the expertise, and what that cost might be?
Yeah, that's definitely something that we do consider, and I'll give you an example within the Department of Finance when we've considered outside collection agency. So when we evaluate whether we should bring that in-house, have a third party on board, or some combination thereof of certain accounts or types of accounts. So those are kind of the studies that we have ongoing, and those are certainly an opportunity for us to look across the city whether it makes more sense for us to do it in-house or outside if we're able to accommodate the expertise that's needed, if we can bring them on board to handle that type of work, or if it makes more sense for us to outsource it. So those are definitely things that we talk about within the Department of Finance as well as other departments evaluate as well.
It seemed to me that at some point, probably away from our present discussion, that we do need to have that discussion more broadly and particularly around the IT space and probably the legal space, because I know that
our wages and our IT are not reflective of the market, right? So, it's hard to get the top tier people in anyway in the door, given what we pay if we don't find people who are, nothing against the people that are there. They obviously have an overwhelming sense of public duty to come and work for the city. But so that we're not always having to go outside and to incur this expense, it may make sense to try to study to see how we can either improve the wages we pay across the board, in law, what have you, to attract the expertise, or if there are reoccurring issues that need to be addressed. So I hope we can do that at some point in the future, Mr. Chair.
Duly noted, Mr. Bond. Thank you. Any other questions for Dr. Wilson? All right, seeing none, that concludes that presentation. And then the second presentation that we have for today is the COVID-19 Funds Report, which we're doing in written form. Colleagues, Ms. Kempson-Wright has emailed that information out to everybody, so if you have any questions as you review that information, please contact the departments directly. All right, that next takes us to communications. Item number 1 is 22-C 5086, a communication from Danielle Hampton, Chair, Audit Committee, submitting the Performance Audit Report Extra Help. I'll now turn the floor over to you to present. And colleagues, you have a copy of the slides before you.
Good afternoon, committee members. Good to go? Okay. Good afternoon. I'm Ijik Jones. I'm a senior performance auditor with the City Auditor's Office, and I will be presenting the results of the Department of Human Resources audit of extra help positions. Slides. Okay. Thank you. Oh, thank you. The team for this audit was Myra Hagley, Senior Performance Auditor and Audit Supervisor, and myself. The Department of Human Resources works with city departments to meet their staffing needs, and as part of these duties, the department manages the creation, use, and use of extra help positions, which are short-term positions created administratively to meet departmental needs, such as staffing special projects or filling a temporary or seasonal vacancy within a required time frame. We undertook this audit due to concerns about the length of time employees remained in extra help positions and the associated budgetary impact. This audit assessed whether controls are in place to prevent the city's extra help expenses from creating personnel budget overruns. The scope of this audit focused on extra help spending from the city's operating funds across fiscal years 2019, 2020, and 2021. We also reviewed existing city positions as of November 2021. Our methods included reviewing city code and policies for guidance regarding the creation, use, and approval of extra help positions, interviewing human resources staff to gain an understanding of current practice, analyzing Oracle expenditure data for all departmental personnel funds for fiscal years 2019 through 2021, analyzing employee position and benefits data as of November 2021, and reviewing best practices in implementing extra help policies. Departments use extra help positions to meet resource demands. HR's policy defines extra help as a position created for use in emergencies, busy times, or other transitional periods. This slide shows Exhibit 3 from page 4 of the report, listing 3 scenarios where extra help positions can be used to fill staffing gaps as described in the extra help policy. This includes to fill a temporary need, such as a special project or seasonal position, during transitional periods such as the overlap between a separating employee exhausting their leave and the new employee that will enter the authorized position, and to temporarily pay an employee higher than the position's entry point for a maximum of 60 days. As of November 8, 2021, the city had 8,214 employees filling 8,405 positions. The city had more filled positions than employees because 173 employees had one or more secondary assignments. Of the 8,405 filled positions, 438 were extra help. Extra help positions may be full-time, part-time, or temporary, and the extra help policy describes time-related limits on extra help positions. An extra help position cannot be created for more than 1 year, and the position must expire during the current budget year. The policy allows user departments to request the extra help positions be extended, but the department must still follow funding and time limit requirements. 7 departments account for most of the city's extra help spending. This graph is Exhibit 9 on page 17 of the report, and the green line reflects the number of extra help positions in each department, and the purple bar reflects the approved extra help salaries in each department. Over $23 million of the $31 million of approved extra help salaries came from Parks and Recreation, the executive offices, aviation, public works, law, police, and watershed management. Here we'll delve further into some of our findings. The extra help positions are created administratively and are subject to less oversight than the city's formal pay and classification system. We found the city's extra help policy lacks detailed guidance, resulting in inconsistent practices. In December 2019, Human Resources implemented a streamlined recruiting process where departments must request positions by submitting a request to fill form for the appropriate budget review and approvals for referral to the Vacancy Review Board. The board consists of the Chief Operating Officer, Chief Financial Officer, Deputy Chief Operating Officers, Chief of Staff, Human Resources Commissioner, and an Innovation and Performance team. The Vacancy Review Board reviews and either approves or denies position requests, including extra help positions. The existing extra help policy was last revised in 2007 before the creation of the Vacancy Review Board and the implementation of the new position creation and approval processes in 2019. The extra help policy also does not define the duration of these transitional periods. For example, when a separating employee chooses to remain on payroll to exhaust their remaining annual leave and continue their benefits, the department cannot fill the position until the leave has run out because the separating employee still occupies the position. Instead, a department can create an extra help position with benefits and hire a new employee into that position until the authorized position is available. However, maintaining 2 employees on payroll for one position has an additional budgetary impact, and the policy did not define how long extra help positions can be used for this practice. Additionally, some position numbers for extra help positions are reused for different employees if the position is seasonal. However, the extra help policy does not describe this practice. HR staff said they reuse seasonal vacant extra help positions to fill seasonal needs without creating new position numbers and skewing vacancy numbers in the position report. But when position numbers are reused across multiple employees, it's more difficult to monitor the duration of an extra help position. The extra help policy is also unclear as to when extra help employees are eligible for benefits. The policy states that extra help employees generally will not receive benefits, but that a position can be created with benefits. And Human Resources staff said that some extra help positions qualify for benefits under the Affordable Care Act's shared responsibility provision. And we found that about 52% of eligible extra help employees have elected some or full health coverage. Additionally, the pension administrator told us that part-time regular and full-time regular employees should contribute to the city pension plan, which would include employees in 142 extra help positions. However, the extra help policy does not define the circumstances under which an employee in an extra help position is eligible to receive health or pension benefits, which could lead to inequitable treatment of employees and additional financial impacts. This slide shows Exhibit 6 on page 10 of the report. The extra help policy limits employees from remaining in extra help positions beyond a year, but our review found that while most extra help positions were filled for less than a year, about 17% of extra help positions were filled for longer than a year, and one employee has held her extra help role since July 2013. We found that HR has no mechanism in place to monitor the length of extra help positions and alert departments when an extra help position is approaching the policy time limit and should be extended, expired, or reclassified in a personnel paper. Additionally, the request to fill form for extra help positions requires departments to indicate whether the requested extra help position is a temporary position or will be used to reclassify an existing position as an authorized position in an upcoming personnel paper, using a T for temporary or a P for personnel paper on the request to fill form. However, we found that only 13% of filled extra help positions indicate whether they are temporary or are to be entered into a personnel paper. Extra help expenses exceeded budgeted amounts over 3 fiscal years. On the slide, this is Exhibit 5 on page 6 of the report. The stacked bar on the right shows actuals for both regular and sworn extra help expenses, while the left shows the budgeted amounts. Expenses for both regular and sworn extra help positions exceeded the funded budget amounts in each fiscal year by $6.6 to $10.2 million. The extra help policy states that departments must have funds available within their budgets to create an extra help position, and that these funds may come from the department's extra help budget as well as other sources such as salary savings due to vacant budgeted positions or from other departmental accounts. However, the Budget Office does not usually move funding from one account line, such as the regular salaries line, into the extra help salaries line item, because it can appear as if the funding is not needed for regular positions and skew future budgeting efforts. Instead, the extra help position is paid from the extra help account, incurring a deficit, while other personnel accounts may show a surplus. Because these budgetary controls are applied at the major account level, a deficit in a department's extra help budget does not always represent a deficit in personnel funding. However, between 5 and 10 departments incurred both an extra help deficit and a personnel budget deficit in each of the fiscal years we reviewed, indicating that the extra help deficit could not be absorbed by other personnel funds and contributed to an overall personnel deficit. Exhibit 7 on page 15 of the report shows a detailed breakdown of total personnel fund balances and the portion of the funding that represents extra help spending. 11 departments had cost overruns in both the extra help fund and personnel costs in at least one of the fiscal years, and 4 departments had cost overruns in all 3 fiscal years: executive offices, AIM, Fire, and the city solicitor. We found that the cost estimates required as part of the request to fill package are insufficient to anticipate budget overruns, as the request to fill form only requires departments to state the associated salary or wage cost of a requested extra help position, but not the cost of benefits. According to budget staff, their expense run rate calculation considers positions that have already been approved and does not include the benefits costs for new extra help positions. Benefits for extra help employees are paid from a department's personnel funds and therefore increase the risk that extra help expenses may cause a department to overrun their personnel budget. Additionally, when a department intends to fund an extra help position using salary savings from a vacant regular position, Human Resources does not freeze the vacant regular position to ensure it's not filled. This could allow the department to fill the vacant position and use the funds that were needed to fund the extra help position, resulting in a personnel deficit. We also noted a position request that was approved by the Vacancy Review Board despite a negative recommendation from the Budget Office due to a negative run rate calculation of how much of the personnel budget a department had spent. To address our findings, we made 6 recommendations to the HR Commissioner to increase transparency in extra help use and prevent personnel budget shortfalls. We recommend that the Human Resources Commissioner create and implement processes to monitor the length of extra help positions and alert departments and human resource business partners to expire extra help positions per the policy or to reclassify extra help positions in personnel papers per the request to fill process. We also recommend that they ensure departments indicate whether requested extra help positions are to be temporary or to be entered into a personnel paper on the request to fill form, and request indicators from departments with existing extra help positions that do not have indicators in Oracle. We recommend that the HR Commissioner expand the city's extra help policy to reflect current procedures and make departments aware of the updated policy in key areas, including specific circumstances in which position numbers can be reused, when an extra help employee is eligible to receive benefits, and to define the length of time of transitional periods. We recommend the HR Commissioner freeze the corresponding vacant authorized positions when departments fund extra help positions with salary savings and establish criteria for approving positions when the Budget Office forecasted a deficit in personnel spending. The HR Commissioner agreed with all of our recommendations except the recommendation to freeze corresponding vacant authorized positions when departments fund extra help with salary savings. HR's response indicated that the Commissioner felt it was the responsibility of department heads to manage personnel spending along with VRB oversight and tracking. We also made 1 recommendation to the Budget and Fiscal Policy Chief to ensure that funding is available to avoid cost overruns. We recommend the Budget and Fiscal Policy Chief prepare more complete cost estimates that include associated benefits costs on the request to fill form, and the Budget Chief agreed with our recommendation. This concludes our presentation. The full report is published on our website at atlaudit.org, and we want to thank the departments for their time and cooperation. We'd be happy to answer any questions.
Before I recognize council members for questions, I'd like to hear from Human Resources in terms of response, reaction, or comments, or the administration.
Good afternoon, Councilmember Wan and members of the Finance Executive Committee. Jeffrey Norman, Human Resources Commissioner. First of all, appreciate the work that has been done by the Auditor's Office. We did have an opportunity to sit and to kind of talk through them with all of the recommendations, look at the findings. As indicated, we did agree with the majority of the recommendations. We have already started the work that is needed to make sure that we have full implementation of those recommendations. As we do move and shift toward FY23, we are currently making sure that we do adjust some of the approaches to how we look at personnel, whether that be in the extra help category or just for those FTEs that are currently authorized and funded. So you will see some shifts in that as well. And so we are going to drill down along with exec offices to make sure that we have those types of discussions and actual documented plans, staffing plans for departments, so it's a little bit easier to manage some of that crossover. So we do look forward to making sure that we get those policies updated. While we have leveraged some of our more recent initiatives, we want to make sure that those correspond across all the written documentation. So we do believe we have the required data sets. We just have to make sure that we did have to address some of those data entry requirements. Part of that makes some of those required fields and all of those things to just make sure that we can extract that data out. We have begun the process of making sure that we do monthly reconciliation along with the departments to ensure that we can make sure that they are addressing anything that is extended beyond the intended use of the position. So that's our general response, but once again, available for any questions you have for DHR.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. We have Councilmember Dozier up with a question, and then Shook.
My first question is, I'm curious, what are some of the typical extra help positions that we were seeing? I imagine they vary across department, which is, I appreciated the graph that was in the auditing presentation around, which departments were using this process more frequently than others, but I'm curious what type of positions are we typically seeing across these departments?
So one that just jumps out, for example, as we worked our way through the pandemic and we started to see an actual, we started to see absentee rates, rise, obviously, as folks became exposed to the virus. Part of that did require, for example, in our Public Works Department to create extra help positions, because once we kind of dipped under a 70% employee utilization rate because folks were out, with COVID, we needed to supplement that with creation of additional temporary positions. And so you'll see those types of things occur in departments. I think we also talked about is pretty routine, because we do have the ability when folks leave the city and they have the ability to either stay on the city's books or to go ahead and take that lump sum payment. We will obviously create, extra help positions to facilitate the need at the department for that role until that person rolls off. And then we will put that current incumbent into the FTE position. So you'll see those types of things throughout the organization.
And so I'm assuming you're mostly public-facing employees were typically the ones that were needing to utilize additional help.
To supplement, yes, correct.
And so, I guess this is for the auditors, did y'all include that in your evaluation in terms of the type of job function that person had? Because, like I said, I really appreciated the by department breakdown. I'm curious what that looks like by employee type, so that we can maybe get an apples-to-apples comparison. I imagine Public Works and Parks and Recreation have more public-facing employees than maybe
Yes,
planning.
so any position in the classification plan could have an extra help. So we've had extra help performance auditors, for example, and we do have that information. I don't recall, we didn't put it in the report, and I don't recall how many of which positions, but we can get you that information.
All right, thank you. Bashir.
Thank you. So seasonal employees would fall under this label, correct?
There are some seasonal positions, and there are some extra help positions that are seasonal, so it could be either way.
But if you're seasonal, then by definition, you're some manner of extra help, correct?
I think there are actual seasonal positions that are not classified as extra help that are classified as seasonal. So the definitions were a little unclear.
Is that why Parks has as many as they do?
Yes. Yes, Parks employees are seasonal. The extra help employees are seasonal.
Okay. So there's 438 that fall in this category. Do they receive the same manner of employee evaluations as the rest of the workforce?
I am not sure how that is enforced. They're supposed to meet the minimum qualifications for the job hiring.
To be hired.
To be hired.
We don't know if they're evaluated similar to the rest of the workforce.
The policy does not address that, and since they're supposed to be less than a year, I don't think that was part of the process. I'll defer to HR.
Okay. And there's not a whole lot that have been here. You know, there are some. There's not a whole lot relative to the percentage of the workforce, but there are more than a few who have been here apparently for years. I'd hate to think that, you know, they're not receiving the kind of support that, you know, one might expect as resulting from an evaluation. Commissioner, did you want to have anything to say about that?
Yeah, I was just going to note, and so as you'll see, you know, you do have that categorization of those who are temporary, intended for temporary service, but as you'll see with some of those numbers, there are those that obviously extend, you know, because they're in what is a permanent position, which means that those are really tended to, those are designed so you can accommodate them crossing over to a normal FTE position. So those who are in those for past a, you know, really a 4-month period, yeah, those are folks who should be engaged in the performance evaluation process.
Well, just lastly, an observation. I totally understand the logic, auditors in expecting HR to play a lead role in keeping up with the flow of the, you know, paperwork and who's supposed to be where, doing what for how long a period of time, but it does seem to me that they are perhaps less to be considered as sort of the appropriate departmental discipline arm when it comes to making sure that departments are doing what they need to do. That seems to me that, you know, that they can keep up with all the stats and everything, but if the COO just isn't going to do anything with that, I don't know how far we're going to get in you know, cleaning this up. Any comments on that?
So I'll just note, as I kind of mentioned at the outset, so the COO has addressed that there is a different philosophy as to how we will manage staffing going forward. So she has begun those discussions with the respective department heads. So I think we will see, you know, a system that will better accommodate being able to allow the respective departments to stay on top of these types of matters.
Thank you. Thank you.
Other questions before I ask mine? Okay, so slide 7, this is the one that has the schedule in terms of the number, the amount of time extra help positions are in place. I'm not sure I heard an explanation of or rationalization of why someone is more than 9 years. Or I would say anything from 5 years or over seems a little eye-popping to me.
Well, I mean, there's no real explanation other than nobody's monitoring.
Okay. All right, so perhaps in the COO's kind of review that hopefully will rise to the top in terms of extra help, because that's very jarring. That's really my only question. This is a great audit topic, and I appreciate the work that y'all did. I think for me, especially the slide that says the budgeted amount versus the overage, it makes it very, very difficult from our side to try and, when we're in the budgeting process or even just following this, to understand what the departments really need in terms of staffing. Because if you've got this extra help number that's just moving all over the place and everything gets dumped into that, it's hard to know what the right org structure should be, what the right staffing level should be. Obviously, we want to build in flexibility for unforeseen events or just, as Mr. Shook said, some seasonal fluctuations. But sometimes to double the amount, go over the budget amount by 100%, it just makes it hard from our side to be able to get our heads around what the real run rates should be, both in terms of dollars and people. So I look forward to working with the Commissioner and the Chief Operating Officer on this particular topic, because if we want to make sure we are doing right by employees, we got to make sure that we've got the right number of employees in the right levels and the right positions, and this makes it all that much harder. So other questions before we close this out? All right, thank you, Ms. Noble. Thank you, Commissioner. Okay, colleagues, with that, we need to take an action on 22-C-5886. There's a motion from Shook to file. I'll second. No further discussion. Let's open that vote, please.
The vote is open. Will everyone please vote? Councilmember Bond? Councilmember Bakhtiari? Thank you. The vote is closed.
7 yeas, 0 nays. Motion carries. This item is filed. That takes us to first reads, consent agenda first reads. This also includes the walk-in, correct? Ms. Kempson-Wright, if you'll sound those for us, we will move those to the next cycle to address.
Item number 2 is 22-01499, an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute the First Amendment to a cooperative purchasing agreement FC 8869, Kings 3 Elevator Emergency Telephone Equipment, Monitoring, Maintenance, and Dispatch Services with Kings 3 of America Incorporated, North America doing business as Kings 3 Emergency Communications, on behalf of the Department of Atlanta Information Management to add 4 one-year renewal options plus 1 final renewal option which may be exercised July 1st, 2026 through May 30th, 2027, and to exercise the 4th renewal option commencing July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023, in an amount not to exceed $24,283.20. All contracted work to be charged and paid from the funding numbers listed herein and for other purposes. Item number 3 is 22-01500, an ordinance to authorize the Chief Financial Officer to pay invoices for services rendered under cooperative purchasing agreement. Number listed, Everbridge Mass Notification and Emergency Alert System with Everbridge Incorporated, on behalf of the Departments of Atlanta Information Management, Customer Service, Atlanta Police, and Aviation, in an amount not to exceed $85,056.09. All contracted work to be charged and paid from the account numbers listed. Item number 4 is 22-01501, an ordinance authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to pay all outstanding invoices to Landmark Consulting, LLC, for consulting services related to cost recovery through FEMA and the CARES Act due to COVID-19 in an amount not to exceed $194,182.50. To enter into amendment number 1 for contract listed cost recovery and grants management consulting services in an amount not to exceed $125,357.67. All contracted work to be charged and paid the account numbers listed. Item number 5 is 22-01502, an ordinance to ratify services rendered in connection with agreement FC 6120, citywide janitorial services with American Facility Service Incorporated beginning March 31st, 2022, and to authorize the mayor or his designee to execute the 9th Amendment to the agreement to extend the term on a month-to-month basis for up to 12 months, retroactively effective from March 31st, 2022 through March 31st, 2023, and to add funds to the agreement on behalf of the Department of Enterprise Asset Management, Department of Watershed Management, Parks and Recreation, Atlanta Police Department, Human Resources, and Public Works in an amount not to exceed $2,436,280.00 in accordance with Section 21163 of Article 10 Procurement and Real Estate Code of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances. All contracted work to be charged and paid from the account numbers listed. Item number 6 is 22-01503. It's an ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee on behalf of the City of Atlanta to execute license agreements with certain selected kiosk operators for the operation of the city's available vacant kiosks located in the city's right-of-way for a period of 2 years, with one option to renew for 1 additional year at the discretion of the city, with the selected kiosk operators to pay rent to the city in the amount of $250.00 per kiosk per month, to authorize all generated revenue to be deposited into the account listed herein.
to waive the requirements of the Procurement and Real Estate Code, Chapter 2, Article 10 of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances to the extent of any conflict. Item number 7 is 22-01504, an ordinance authorizing the payment in an amount not to exceed $11,796.80 to the gallery collection. Item number 8 is 22-01505, an ordinance to ratify services rendered in connection with cooperative purchase agreement number listed with Rico USA Incorporated via State of Georgia contract number listed, to authorize the mayor or his designee to exercise the first renewal option under the agreement on behalf of the Atlanta City Council, retroactively effective March 20th, 2022, for multifunction copiers in an amount not to exceed $16,711.84 in accordance with Section 21163, subsection C of Article 10, Procurement and Real Estate Code of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances, all contracted work to be charged and paid from the account numbers listed. And the final item, the walk-in, is Elms ID 29741, an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee on behalf of the City of Atlanta to enter into cooperative agreement number listed, pre-employment, physical, and drug testing with Metropolitan Atlanta Rapid Transit Authority, MARTA, contract number listed with Caduceus USA, effective March 1st, 2022 through February 28th, 2023, on behalf of the Department of Human Resources in an amount not to exceed $400,000 annually. All work to be charged to and paid from account numbers listed herein and for other purposes.
Thank you, Ms. Kempston. I think you owe me 6 and for other purposes. You didn't sound those out in the captions. All right, it takes us to regular agenda. Ordinances for second read. First item is number 9, 22-01443, an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to pay all outstanding invoices to Stewart Brothers, Inc. for FC 9662. G, Transportation and Infrastructure Construction Services for the milling and resurfacing of Joseph E. Lowry Boulevard on behalf of the Department of Transportation in accordance with Section 2-1163 of the Procurement and Real Estate Code of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances in an amount not to exceed $505,952.00. All contracted work to be charged to and paid from various fund, department, organization, and account numbers listed herein and for other purposes. All right, Deputy Commissioner, please.
Good afternoon. Jessica Fulton, Deputy Commissioner, Capital Projects, Atlanta Department of Transportation. This would allow us to complete payment to this contractor and close this project out. This was for our LMIG resurfacing.
Questions? Motion from Shook to approve. Is there a second? Second from Bakhtiari. If there's no further discussion, let's open that vote, please.
The vote is open.
You have a question, Mr. Bond? I can ask you that. Okay, thank you.
Will everyone please vote? Vote is closed.
There should be aye, right? Yeah. So 7 yeas, 0 nays, motion carries. This item passes. Mr. Bond, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Deputy Commissioner. I have a question. It's not about the legislation, but I know the mayor announced yesterday that they completed the work on the MLK corridor, but the gateway section around where the statue is not completed. Can you give us a timeline when that work will be done and finished out?
I can check and get that timeline for you. That the artwork is being handled by the Cultural Affairs team, but I can check and get you a timeline when the artwork will be finished.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Next item is 22-01444, an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee on behalf of the City of Atlanta to execute all documents necessary for the acquisition of certain property interests necessary for the Moores Mill multimodal roadway extension and transit layover facility project, authorizing negotiations with property owners for the acquisition of such property interests, authorizing title searches, appraisals, surveys, and any other items necessary for the acquisition of such property interests, authorizing the mayor and the city attorney, in the event negotiations are unsuccessful, to institute condemnation proceedings pursuant to code section listed, waiving certain provisions of Article 10, Real Estate and Procurement Code of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances on behalf of the Atlanta Department of Transportation, all contracted work and payments for property interest to be paid from account numbers listed herein and for other purposes. Deputy Commissioner Fulton.
Yes, this legislation will allow us to begin right-of-way services for this project. This will allow us to complete the design and move it on toward construction. We support the legislation.
Questions from my colleagues, and I just want to confirm that the piece in here about if the negotiations aren't successful and we do have to take further action, that would come back before council before being effected, correct? That may be a law question. So basically, the condemnation proceedings would require additional council action before taking effect.
So, excuse me, hi, Amber Robinson, Department of Law. Pursuant to this legislation, it authorizes the mayor and the city attorney to initiate the condemnation proceedings pursuant to state law. And so throughout, should this legislation pass, then they have the authority to go ahead and initiate those proceedings.
So without, it would not need to come back to city council.
Depending on how the proceedings go, there could be a need to pay further funds as a result of the condemnation proceedings, which would result in further council action. But that would, of course, all be determined by the direction of those proceedings.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Robinson. Any other questions from my colleagues on this paper? Is there a motion? Motion to approve from Winston. Is there a second? Second by Dozier. If there's no further discussion, let's open that vote, please.
Could you please repeat the motion and seconder, please?
Winston's motion, Dozier second.
Thank you. The vote is open. The vote is closed.
6 yeas, 0 nays. The motion carries. This item is approved. Thank you, Deputy Commissioner. All right, item number 11, 22-01445, an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute the Second Amendment to Cooperative Purchasing Agreement FC 8871, T-Mobile USA, Inc., wireless voice data services with T-Mobile USA, Inc. on behalf of the Department of Atlanta Information Management to add 1 year to the term of the agreement effective July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023, and to add funding in an amount not to exceed $655,496.57. All contracted work to be charged to and paid from funding numbers listed herein and for other purposes. Ms. Ball.
Good afternoon. I'm Aaron Baugh, Deputy Chief Information Officer for AIM. This legislation that we're presenting today is to allow us to enter into a Second Amendment for this T-Mobile contract to add on 1 year, as is stated here, and also to help us with the transition from Sprint to T-Mobile. So those services, which is why we have the increase.
All right, any questions for the department? Motion from Shook. Is there a second? Second from Winston. Motion Shook, second Winston. Let's open the vote, please.
Vote is open.
Make sure he's still awake.
Vote is closed.
6 yeas, 0 nays. Motion carries. This item is approved. Next item, 22-01446, an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee to authorize the Chief Financial Officer or his designee to amend the FY 2022 Capital Finance Fund by creating a new project number in the Oracle financial system for personnel and operational expenses related to the administration of the Impact Fee Program, to amend the FY 2022 Capital Finance Fund by transferring appropriations to and from the accounts as shown herein, to amend future fiscal year's capital finance fund budgets on a recurring annual basis as shown herein and for other purposes. Colleagues, we have an amendment to this. It's in your packet. The amendment, make sure I'm reading it, changes the funding source listed in the charts, Section 2 and Section 4, to 3502 Solid Waste Management Authority to read DIF Admin. I'll move to amend. Second by Shook. If there's no discussion on the motion to amend, let's open that vote, please.
Vote is open. Vote is closed. The amendment's before you.
All right, 6 yeas, 0 nays. The paper is amended. So I believe it was Ms. Cope was going to come present this paper to us, please.
Hi, good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. The purpose of this legislation is to update the Oracle financial system pursuant to 21-0-0096, which is the adoption of the 2020 impact fee update. The paper you have before you today addresses the following. Create a new restricted project number in Oracle dedicated to the operational and personnel expenses related to the administration of the impact fee program. Amend the FY22 Capital Finance Fund by transferring $606,085.70 from the current unrestricted project to the newly created restricted project number. Also amend the 22 Capital Finance Fund by transferring up to $95,000 from the 2020 Impact Fee Administrative Project to the newly created restricted project number. And finally, amend the Capital Finance Fund budget for future years by making annual transfers not to exceed $130,000 to ensure fees collected from grandfathered projects are moved to the newly restricted project and for operational personnel expenses. Thank you.
Questions for Mr. Shook? And then I have a question as well.
Yeah, so that I have my definition straight, what would a grandfathered project be?
So when we completed the update to the impact fee program, it went into effect September 1st, 2021. There were permit applications submitted prior to that effective date that were not subject to increased fees.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Other questions? All right, this may, I don't even know who, this may be for finance. So I'm looking at the legislation and I see the three parts. One is to move the $606,000. And then there's another part about the $95,000, which you referenced, and another section with the $130,000 for the grandfathered projects. But the blocks under that still reference the full $606,000. So I don't know if that should actually be the match the $130,000 referenced in Section 4.
Section 4, let's see. Okay, so yes, sir. Section 4 should have represented the $130,000 that we're moving annually, because we don't know what that collection would be from those grandfathered projects. We just did that up to amount and did not reflect it in those charts, since we again don't know what that exact amount would be each year.
Okay, so we should, if I'm hearing you correctly, we should amend that table that follows Section 4 to reflect the $130,000, not the $606,000.
Okay.
Is that correct? I'm just want to make sure. I just don't want this to have to come back to us as another correction.
Yes, I believe you're correct, because the $95,000 is supposed to be future years, and to ensure that the funding is set aside in those future years and not the $606,000.
Okay. All right. So we'll need to amend this one more time. So we're amending Section 4, the table that is in there, to reflect $130,000 in the amount columns of both the transfer from and to appropriations. So I'll make that motion. Can I get a second, please? Seconded by Bond. Let's open that vote, please.
One moment. The vote is open. The vote is closed. The second amendment is before you.
All right, 7 yeas, 0 nays. The motion, the paper is amended one more time. So now I'll make a motion to approve as amended both amendments. Seconded by Shook. Let's open the vote, please.
The vote is open.
All right, 7 yeas, 0 nays. The motion carries. The amended paper has been approved. Thank you. All right, next item is item number 13, 22-01451, an ordinance by Councilmember Matt Westmoreland authorizing a donation in an amount not to exceed $1,500.00 from the Post 2 at-large carry-forward account to Moving in the Spirit and for other purposes. Any questions on this? I'll move approval. Is there a second? Seconded by Shook. If there's no further discussion, let's open the vote, please.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
7 yeas, 0 nays. The motion carries. This item is approved. Next item, 22-01452, an ordinance by Councilmember Matt Westmoreland authorizing a donation in an amount not to exceed $10,000.00 from the Post 2 at-large carry-forward account to Horizons Atlanta and for other purposes. Is there a motion? Motion from Bakhtiari, second by Shook. Let's open that vote, please. I'm going to have to
Vote is open. Will everyone please vote? The vote is closed.
All right, 6 yeas, 0 nays, 1 abstention. That motion carries. Colleagues, I had to abstain on this. Horizons Atlanta is my employer. All right, item number 15, 22-01460, an ordinance by Councilmember Marcy Collier Overstreet authorizing the Atlanta Development Authority doing business as Invest Atlanta to identify loans made to small businesses under the Creative Industries Loan Fund program and convert those loans to grants due to the deleterious impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the entrepreneurial ecosystem, to authorize Invest Atlanta to establish and memorialize appropriate grant requirements for all future disbursements from this fund, to amend Ordinance 17-01723 to the extent of its conflict with this ordinance and for other purposes. Dr. Klementich, I see you out there.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much. So in 2017, we were before this council asking for authority to create a creative industries loan fund. The purpose was, as you know, that the creative industries in the state of Georgia represents about $37 billion in revenue and employs over 100,000 Georgians. If you look specifically at the film and television, you're looking at a $7 billion industry. Music is over $3.7 billion, and the arts and culture over $2.2 billion. The city of Atlanta houses a robust talent pool of independent movie producers, creative entrepreneurs, and musical artists that do not qualify for the film and television digital entertainment tax credit. There are several startup creative entrepreneurs that require seed funding to really produce and distribute their products, and that's who our target was. So we were able to create the Industries Fund, which was going to assist, and it did assist, a total of 13 content creators and creative entrepreneurs with production, post-production, marketing, touring, prototype development, proto-development, and distribution costs. The loans that we provided to the 13 individuals or businesses were anywhere from $5,000 to about $100,000. To be eligible, they had to be producing creative production and distribution anywhere within the city limits. What we found is we made our first loan in 2019. They were able to defer for 6 months, and then COVID hit. When COVID hit, COVID was a big impact for our creatives, as that was one of the industries that really slowed down and was not able to continue to produce at the levels that it was looking to produce. So what we're here asking for is, to date, of the 13 loans that we made for a total of $519,000, we would ask that we could turn those into grants. We've reached out to all of those creatives, and they continue to suffer or be able to have difficulties if we ask them to repay. That will leave us the total allocation that was provided to Invest Atlanta create this fund was $1.25 million. That means we have about $730,000 left, and we would also turn those grants open, we would turn those into grants and open them up for our creatives to continue with the spirit of what we asked. They originally presented here to this council was to really help those creatives that do not qualify for the state's tax credit, but really look for opportunities to continue to support our creatives in our city. And I'm here to answer any other questions.
So, Dr., y'all, Invest Atlanta is supportive of this this action, correct?
Yes.
All right. Questions for Mr. Shook? Oh, there's a motion from Shook to approve, seconded by Winston. Any further discussion? Seeing none, let's open that vote, please.
Vote is open.
The vote is closed.
7 yeas, 0 nays. The motion carries. This paper is approved. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, and I'll let everybody know when it's open so you can tell your districts.
Thanks. All right, 22-01462, an ordinance by Councilmember Marcy Collier Overstreet authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute cooperative purchasing agreement CPS 1220343, security enhancement services with Dell Marketing LP on behalf of the Departments of Atlanta Information Management, Watershed Management, and Aviation, utilizing Georgia Department of Administrative Services contract number listed for a term of 1 year, retroactively commencing May 7, 2022 through May 6, 2023, with 3 one-year renewal options in an amount not to exceed $2,443,492.84, all of the contracted work to be charged to and paid from funding numbers listed herein and for other purposes. Colleagues, we do have an amendment to this. The amendment updates the Department of Aviation's account number in Section 2. I'll move to amend. Seconded by Shook. Any discussion? If not, let's open that vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. The amendment is before you.
All right, 7 yeas, 0 nays. Motion carries. Deputy CIO.
Aaron Baugh, Deputy Chief Information Officer for AIM. This legislation that we're presenting today for Dell SecureWorks helps us to manage our security enhancement. So this is a managed security service provider, and they provide for us or assist us with providing 24/7 monitoring of our threats to include our firewall management, patch management, security audits, and incident response for the entire city of Atlanta. This is a new contract that we are entering into. We have been in relationship with them since our cyber attack.
Any questions for Ms. Ball? There's a motion from Shook to approve as amended. Is there a second? Seconded by Winston. Let's open the vote, please.
Vote is open. The vote is closed.
7 yeas, 0 nays. The motion carries. The item is approved. Thank you. Next item is 22-01463, an ordinance by Councilmember Marcy Collier Overstreet authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to make an intergovernmental payment to Invest Atlanta in an amount not to exceed $62,464.72 for reimbursement of the Beltline T-Splost project tax, professional and real estate services related to the 2017 Beltline TAD bond issue. All expenses will be charged to and paid from the Fund Department organization and account number listed herein and for other purposes. Ms. Carr.
Good afternoon, Yolanda Carr, Interim Deputy CFO. So this is to reimburse Invest Atlanta for $62,000. So this is a project that expired in December, so the proceeds came back to the city, so now we have to reimburse Invest Atlanta to pay for the project.
All right, thank you, Ms. Carr. Questions? Motion from Shook to approve, seconded by, is that Bakhtiari? All right, let's, she gets one on the board. All right, let's open the vote, please.
Vote is open. Will everyone please vote? So we record yours, and thank you. We have it. Motion, vote is closed.
7 yeas, 0 nays. Motion carries. The item is approved.
Thank you.
All right. Next item, there's a substitute, 22-01467. I'll make a motion to bring forward the substitute, seconded by Shook, but it's an ordinance authorizing the transfer of $471,672.00 from various council district consulting professional services accounts to various council district distribution accounts and for other purposes. Motion from Juan, second from Shook to bring forward the substitute. Let's open the vote, please.
Vote is open. The vote is closed.
7 yeas, 0 nays. Motion carries. The substitute is before us. Ms. Kempson-Wright, would you like to walk us through this paper, please?
Yes, Chairman, this ordinance will reallocate funds in certain council district professional consulting services accounts to ensure when the Department of Finance gets ready for the fiscal year 2023 carry forward true-up, that funds are allocated as they should be. And so it's transferring any funds that are remaining in your consulting professional services accounts to your distribution accounts.
Any questions for Ms. Kempson-Wright? Seeing none, I'll move approval on substitute. Is there a second? Second. Seconded by Bond. Motion Juan, second Bond. Let's open the vote, please.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
7 yeas, 0 nays, motion carries. The substitute has been approved. All right, next item, 22-01468, an ordinance by Councilmember Alex Wan supplementing, oh gosh, these bond paper captions, supplementing that certain 31st supplemental bond ordinance 22-01346 adopted by the Atlanta City Council on June blank 2022 and approved by the mayor on June blank 2022 to, among other things, set forth the terms of the City of Atlanta Airport passenger facility charge and subordinate lien general revenue for delivery refunding bond series 2023 FWD-A-1 non-AMT and the City of Atlanta Airport passenger facility charge and subordinate lien general revenue for delivery refunding bond series 2023 FWD-A-2 non-AMT, collectively the series 2023 FWD-A bonds within certain parameters previously established by the city, including the original principal amount of each series 2023 FWD-A bond actually sold and the interest rates, maturity amounts, and maturity dates with respect thereto. Affirm satisfaction of the additional bonds test with respect to the Series 2023 FWD-A bonds. Ratify certain prior actions of the City Council and certain officers and agents of the City with respect to the issuance and sale of the Series 2023 FWD-A bonds. Ratify and approve the execution and delivery of a separate forward delivery bond purchase agreement with respect to each Series 2023 FWD-A bonds and for other related purposes. All right, Deputy CFO, would you like to speak to this before we make a motion?
Sure. This is the pricing ordinance for the forward delivery refunding bond for aviation. It's a direct placement with two banks, Bank of America at $400 million, City National Bank at about $106 million. So this is the pricing ordinance that we need in place in order to move forward with the refunding for aviation.
Questions? So we got to approve it here first, and then it'll go to. We'll go to our meeting on Tuesday, and then get moved to the June 29th special call. Correct. Yep. So it's got to make two other stops. Shook motion to approve. I'll second. Any further discussion? Let's open the vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
7 yeas, 0 nays, the motion carries. This item is approved. I do have a request, though. Let's go ahead, since we know we're going to have a special call on the 29th. Have we set the time for that yet? I want to respect that a couple of council members were not part of the conversation we've been having in finance for the special call, so as much advance notice as we can get and put that on their calendars, that would probably be smart. So I don't know if that's Council President or Ms. Kempston-Wright, but
We'll check with the Office of the Municipal Clerk as that's a full council meeting for them to place on your calendars as early as possible.
Very good. Thank you. All right. Item number 22-1474, an ordinance by Council Member Andrea L. Boone authorizing the transfer of $15,000.00 from the Council District 10 carry forward account to the Council District 10 expense account to continue serving the Atlanta community for the public good and for other purposes. There's an amendment to this in your packet, which amends the legislation to update account allocations in Section 1. So I'll move to amend, seconded by Shook. There's no further discussion. Let's open that vote, please. All right, 7 yeas, 0 nays. The paper is amended. And before us, any questions on this paper? All right, motion from Shook to approve is amended, seconded by Bakhtiari. Let's open that vote, please. Seven yeas, 0 nays, motion carries. The amended paper has been approved. Next item, 22-01476, an ordinance by Council Member Dustin Hillis authorizing the mayor or his designee on behalf of the Department of Customer Service, ATL 311, to waive the provisions of Section 2-1206 of the Atlanta City Code of Ordinances to extend the term of contract number FC 10008, improved city services with ATL 311 mobile application with 3DI Inc. on a month-to-month basis effective July 18, 2022, and continuing on a monthly basis for a period not to exceed 12 months in an amount not to exceed $18,000.00, all contracted work to be charged to and paid from the accounts listed herein and for other purposes. Is Commissioner Good here?
Good afternoon, Chairman Warren and members of Finance Executive Committee.
Can you tell us about this paper and the need for the extension?
Yes, so 3DI is our current mobile app vendor. So what they will be providing is just continued maintenance of our application that provides general information for customers until we are able to identify a new vendor to integrate and to build out a new mobile app for us.
Do we have a time frame on when that new mobile app?
So it has not been confirmed, but we do hope within the next few months or so that it will be deployed.
Very good. All right. Questions for the Commissioner? Ms. Bakhtiari.
Can you just elaborate on the next few months or so?
I wish I could, but I would definitely keep you posted.
Okay. My district will personally take all of you out to dinner. So you just...
And my district will front for dessert then.
Gratuity for our district. We will hypothetically take you out to dinner.
Yes.
All right. Is there a motion? Motion from Bakhtiari. Is there a second? Second from Winston. All right. Let's open that vote, please.
Vote is open. The vote is closed.
7 yeas, 0 nays, the motion carries. Thank you. This item is approved. All right. Colleagues, if there's no objections, I'm going to take 22 and 23 together. 22-01477 is an ordinance by Councilmember Mary Norwood authorizing a donation in an amount not to exceed $5,000.00 from the Council District 8 distribution account to the Chastain Park Conservancy and for other purposes. And 22-01478, an ordinance by Councilmember Mary Norwood authorizing the transfer of $5,000.00 from the Council District 8 expense account to the Council District 8 distribution account to continue serving the Atlanta community for the public good and for other purposes. Colleagues, the author has requested that we hold both papers, so I'll make that motion. Is there a second? Seconded by Bakhtiari. A motion by Juan. Let's open the vote, please.
The vote is open. He's trying. The vote is closed.
7 yeas, 0 nays. The motion carries. These items will be held. All right, that takes us to resolutions. Colleagues, I want to take 24, 25, and 26 and 27 together as the common action will be to hold, but I want to confirm, as I do see several authors of the papers here, that there's no objection to holding your papers in that block. All right, I'm going to go ahead and start reading the captions, but if you do want to take a different path, we can pull that one out. 22-R3704, a resolution by council members Waits, Amos, Winston, Lewis, and Bond, requesting the mayor of the city of Atlanta or his designee to identify funds in the amount of $1 million and 0 cents to support the Black Music and Entertainment Walk of Fame development and for other purposes. Item 22-R3712, a resolution by council members Marcy Collier Overstreet and Andrea L. Boone establishing the City of Atlanta Procurement Reform Task Force for the Promotion of Public Trust in accordance with Section 3-401 of the City of Atlanta Charter to be charged with evaluating the efficacy of the City of Atlanta's procurement and real estate code, administrative regulations, policies, and procedures related to procurement, contract compliance, and vendor relations with surveying national models of government procurement, and with making written recommendations to the mayor and the Atlanta City Council for meaningful reforms in these areas, to provide that the Procurement Reform Task Force shall be comprised of residents of the City of Atlanta and leaders experienced in government, business, or nonprofit service delivery and expertise in government contracting, and shall be facilitated by a firm or professional experienced in working with governments to develop innovative strategies and implementing solutions to complex challenges, to establish that the Procurement Reform Task Force shall make a report with detailed strategy and specific recommendations to the mayor, the city council president, and the Atlanta City Council no later than December 31st, 2022, and for other purposes. 22-R3715, a resolution by Councilmember Alex Wan authorizing the chief financial officer to refund customers for overpayments to water and sewer accounts in in an amount of blank. All funds to be charged to and paid from fund, department, organization, and account numbers listed and for other purposes. And item 27, 22-R3717, a resolution by council members Dustin Hillis, Liliana Bakhtiari, and Alex Wan requesting the Office of the Inspector General of the City of Atlanta present quarterly compliance reports to the Committee on Finance and Executive and for other purposes. Councilmember Waits.
Chairman, there's some unreadiness with respect to the resolution regarding the Walk of Fame. Okay. There will be significant amendments, and there are a number of entities that will be providing funding. So I would like to send this back to committee.
Okay, so hold it here in committee.
Yes, please.
Okay. Thank you for confirming that. I also wanted to share, I did speak with Councilmember Overstreet regarding the her resolution on the procurement reform task force. She did acknowledge or want me to know or want everyone to know that there are a number of council members, I think nearly all council members want to sign on to this. We're not going to do that here today. We'll do that at the next session when we can deliberate on this. And then Bakhtiari, we're good with the OIG. Okay. All right. So the motion for all four papers is to hold, and we will bring this forward in 2 weeks, hopefully. All right, is there a second by Winston? All right. Let's open the vote on all four items, please.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
All right, 7 yeas, 0 nays, the motion carries. These items will be held. All right, item 28, 22-R3840, a resolution by Finance Executive Committee to correct resolution number 22-R-3410, adopted by the Atlanta City Council on May 2nd and approved by operation of law on May 11th, 2022, on behalf of the Finance Executive Committee for the purpose of correcting the funding source in resolution number 22-R-3410 and for other purposes. Ms. Carr.
Good afternoon, Yolanda Carr, Interim Deputy CFO. So this is really a correction for watershed. Previously, it had Fund 5052. We're changing it to 5051. And so this was adopted on May 2nd.
All right, questions? Motion from Shook to approve, seconded by Bakhtiari. Let's open the vote, please.
Vote is open. The vote is closed.
7 yeas, 0 nays, the motion carries. This item is approved. Next item is 29, 22-R3841, resolution by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to exercise the third renewal option for contract number listed, Sensei PPM Beacon Software Upgrade and Professional Service for MS Project Phase 3 with Sensei Project Solutions, Inc. on behalf of the Department of Atlanta Information Management for 1 year, effective October 25, 2022 through October 24, 2023, in an amount not to exceed $56,600.00, and to execute the First Amendment to the agreement and add the Department of Aviation, Department of Enterprise Assets Management, and the Department of Watershed Management as authorized users. All contracted work will be charged to and paid from the fund, department, organization, and account number listed herein and for other purposes. Ms. Bob, I should have just kept you up for all yours. I'm sorry.
Good afternoon. Again, Aaron Baugh, Deputy Chief Information Officer. This legislation seeks to, again, help us enter into our third renewal, and also Dean being added is significant as we are expanding the use of our project and portfolio management software.
All right, questions for Ms. Baugh? Is there a motion? I'll make the motion to approve. Is there a second? Second by Shook. If there's no further discussion, let's open the vote.
Vote is open.
6 yeas, 0 nays, the motion carries. This item is approved. Stay up there. I'm going to jump in and catch you while you're there. So, colleagues, I'm going to jump to item number 32, 22-R3844, a resolution by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to exercise the second renewal option to Cooperative Purchasing Agreement FC 10592, Citywide Office Printer MFDS Supplies and Services with Xerox Corporation on behalf of the Department of Atlanta Information Management for a term of 1 year commencing July 1, 2022 through June 30th, 2023, in an amount not to exceed $2,123,934 $1,000.00. All contracted work will be charged to and paid from the fund, department, organization, and account numbers listed herein and for other purposes. All right, Ms. Ball.
All right. So Xerox is our managed print services, which provides enterprise printing across the city. So this covers our leases as well as our monthly expenses. So we're seeking to enter into a renewal with Xerox to continue these services.
All right. Motion from Shook to approve. Is there a second? Seconded by Dozier. And just for everyone's benefit, MFDS stands for multifunctional devices. All right, let's open the vote, please.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
6 yeas, 0 nays. The motion carries. That item is approved. Stay up there. We're going to do number 34 because I have your name by it. 22-R3846, a resolution by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to exercise the second renewal option for SPS 1200350 Granicus Website Content Management System, license and support services with Granicus SAAS LLC on behalf of the Department of Atlanta Information Management for a term of 1 year effective from October 1, 2022 through September 30, 2023 in an amount not to exceed $43,090.96. All contracted work will be charged to and paid from the fund, department, organization, and account numbers listed herein and for other purposes. Ms. Ball.
Yes, so Granicus provides for us the content management and hosting. There are 4 key enterprise websites, and so that's the AtlantaGA.gov, which is our main website. It is also the Atlanta Police Department. It is also City Council, as well as the Atlanta Fire Department.
Any questions? Motion from Shook to approve. Is there a second? Second from Bakhtiari. Let's open the vote, please.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
7 yeas, 0 nays. Motion carries. Paper is approved. Did I get all of yours? All right, thank you. All right, let's go back now to item number 30, which is 22-R3842. Colleagues, we do have a substitute for this. I'll make a motion to bring forward the substitute. Seconded by Shook. I'll read in the caption and then we'll open the vote. Substitute resolution by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute the First Amendment of the agreement for ad valorem tax billing and collection benefit between the City of Atlanta and DeKalb County on behalf of Erwin Johnson, its tax commissioner, to include the billing and collection associated with property assessed at Clean Energy, also known as PACE, program assessments, and for other purposes. Let's open the vote to bring forward the substitute.
Vote is closed. The substitute is before you.
All right, 7 yeas, 0 nays. Motion carries. We have a substitute. All right, Mr. Davis, I believe you're. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Council. This is Lawrence Davis, Revenue Chief, Office of Revenue. As stated, the resolution before you today is just to amend the ad valorem tax billing and collection already designated with DeKalb County to include the billing and collection associated with the PACE program. And the PACE program provides commercial property owners with a loan to make clean energy improvements to their businesses.
All right, questions for Mr. Davis? Motion from Shook to approve on substitute, seconded by Bakhtiari. Let's open the vote, please.
Vote is open. Will everyone please vote? The vote is closed.
7 yeas, 0 nays. The motion carries. The item is approved on substitute. All right, 31. 22-R3843, a resolution by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to exercise the first renewal option for contract number listed, Everbridge Mass Notification and Emergency Alert System with Everbridge, Inc. on behalf of the Departments of Atlanta Information Management, Customer Service, Atlanta Police, and Aviation for a term of 1 year commencing July 19, 2022 through July 18, 2023, in an amount not to exceed $244,685.32. All contracted work will be charged to and paid from the fund, department, organization, and account number listed herein and for other purposes. Colleagues, we do have an amendment on this that adds the council account number, and I'll make a motion to amend. Is there a second? Second by Bond. Let's open the vote, please.
Vote is open. Will everyone please vote? The amendment's before you.
7 yeas, 0 nays, motion carries. All right, Mr. Denbrock.
We're done?
Yes. Well, no, go ahead and walk us through this paper, please.
Yes, sir. It's a renewal. As a little bit of background, Everbridge was transferred from 311 to the Mayor's Office of Emergency Preparedness, which I lead, and it's basically an emergency notification system that allows for the City of Atlanta to communicate emergency messages to the public within city boundaries, sir.
Questions for Mr. Denbrock? Is there a motion? Motion from Bond to approve on substitutes as amended, second by Dozier. Let's open that vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
7 yeas, 0 nays. The motion carries. The paper as amended is approved. Thank you. All right, next item number 33, 22-R3845, a resolution by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute an agreement for RFP S1210025 citywide architectural planning, design, engineering, and construction phase services, Group A Small. Contract number listed with Corrigan Associates, Inc., contract number listed with Fitzgerald Collaborative Group, LLC, and then with Harris plus Smith, LLC, and then Low Rohad Fox, a joint venture, and with Piper O'Brien, Herb Architects, Ltd., and with Praxis 3 and J.W. Robinson, JV, on a task order basis on behalf of the Department of Enterprise Asset Management and other city departments listed in the attachment Exhibit A for initial term of 3 years with 2 one-year renewal options in an amount not to exceed $5 million and 0 cents per contract. All contracted work shall be charged to and paid from the various fund, department, organization, and account numbers and for other purposes. Colleagues, the IPER report is included in ELMS. Mr. Santil.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Remy Santil, Commissioner of Dean. This legislation just puts forth our engineering and architectural services to allow us to be more nimble in delivering these projects.
All right. Anybody have any questions on this one? There's a motion from Shook to approve, seconded by Winston. Let's open that vote, please.
Who was our motioner?
Shook, Winston.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
7 yeas, 0 nays. The motion carries. This item is favorable. While you're up there, that's the next one anyway. Item number 35, 22-R3847, a resolution by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute an agreement for number listed citywide architectural planning, design, engineering, and construction design phases, Group B Large. And I'll skip the contract numbers, but with Dream ATL Joint Venture Team, with Hawk plus FCG Joint Venture Team, with Pond GVSA LLC, and actually that was Hoke, with SSOE S&W plus Chasm on a task order basis on behalf of the Department of Enterprise Asset Management and other city departments listed in the attached Exhibit A for an initial term of 3 years with 2 one-year renewal options in an amount not to exceed $25 million and 0 cents per contract. All contracted work shall be charged to and paid from various fund, department, organization, and account numbers and for other purposes. Mr. Santil.
Yes, this is still in accordance with the previous legislation and just allowing us to expanding our capacity and having our architectural engineering services.
Any questions? Motion from Shook to approve. I'll second that. Let's open the vote, please.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
7 yeas, 0 nays. The motion carries. This item is approved. Thank you. Next, do you have another one?
I have one more, yeah, I believe 37.
Oh, there it is, 37. 22-R3849, a resolution by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor or its designee to execute an agreement for RFP number listed, citywide elevator service repair and maintenance with TK Elevator Corporation on behalf of the Departments of Enterprise Asset Management, Atlanta Fire and Rescue, Atlanta Police, Aviation, Corrections, Parks and Recreation, Public Works, and Watershed Management for a term of 3 years with 2 one-year renewal options in an amount not to exceed $284,337.84, expressly contingent upon the adoption and approval of the FY23 budget. All contracted work will be charged to and paid from the fund, department, organization, and account number listed herein and for other purposes. Because we have an amendment to this, which deems functional activity code in the second be it further resolved clause. I'll make that amendment. Is there a motion? Is there a second? Second. Seconded by Bond. Motion by Juan to amend. Let's open that vote, please.
Vote is open.
He's pressing it.
The vote is closed.
7 yeas, 0 nays. The motion carries. The paper is amended and before us. Mr. Santiago.
So this legislation just simply establishes our preventative maintenance program for our elevators throughout the city. And this is what it establishes.
All right, questions? Mr. Shook.
Does this include the executive elevator?
Yes.
Okay, good, because I've been stuck in there twice.
We want to make sure that doesn't happen again. That's why.
Well, they keep telling me it's an accident.
All right. Well, we're going to make sure that happens this time.
We'll assign you to the quality control team.
All right.
Any other questions? Is there a motion? I'll make a motion to approve as amended, seconded by Shook. Let's open that vote, please.
Will everyone please vote? The vote is closed.
7 yeas, 0 nays. The motion carries. The amended paper is approved. Okay, I got lost here. All right, so that's 35. All right, 36, right? All right, 22-R3848, a resolution by Finance Executive Committee to correct resolution number 21-R4155, adopted by the City Council on November 1st, 2021, and approved per City Charter Section 2-403 on November 10th, 2021, by removing the incorrect fund account center listed and for other purposes. All right, Commissioner.
Good afternoon. Jeffrey Norman, Commissioner of Human Resources. So this piece of legislation relates back to the contract agreement that was passed back in November. And so that is a citywide, we pull that from citywide accounts. And so this is to make sure that we have the correct account for the executive offices.
Questions for the Commissioner? Motion from Shook to approve, seconded by Winston. Let's open the vote, please.
Vote is open.
Seven yeas, 0 nays. The motion carries. Item is approved. We've done 37. All right, that takes us to dual referreds. We don't have any coming off of that. Correct? Not that I'm aware of.
Correct. No dual referrals.
Item number 38 now, I mean, can we file this since we did move Mr. Bond's ordinance through already?
We would need the Transportation Committee to file it, yes.
Okay. No, 39 is different. That's HelloFresh. They removed the other one, the ordinance. Correct, Ms. Kempson, right? Yeah, move that. Okay. Nothing is ready for under the dual referreds. All right, that takes us to papers held in committee. We have 4 to come off, 41, 42, 43, and 44. I would like to take them as a block if there's no objection. All right, it says 22-01151, an ordinance by Councilmember Liliana Bakhtiari to provide for the annexation of property located at 2001 Glenwood Avenue Southeast, 2007 Glenwood Avenue Southeast, and 2013 Glenwood Avenue Southeast, Georgia 30316, into the corporate limits of the City of Atlanta, Georgia, pursuant to the 100% method, to extend the boundaries of the Atlanta Independent School System, to notify the Department of Community Affairs of the State of Georgia of such annexation, and for other purposes. 22-01154, it's an ordinance by Councilmember Liliana Bakhtiari to provide for the annexation of property located at 2014 Swayze Drive, Decatur, Georgia 30032, into the corporate limits of the City of Atlanta, Georgia, pursuant to the 100% method. The remainder of the caption is similar to the previous one. 22-01157, an ordinance by Councilmember Liliana Bakhtiari to provide for the annexation of property located at 2071 Kavanaugh Avenue Southeast, 2080 Kavanaugh Avenue Southeast, 2083 Kavanaugh Avenue Southeast, that's hard to say, and 2084 Kavanaugh Avenue Southeast, Atlanta, Georgia 30316, into the corporate limits of the City of Atlanta, Georgia, pursuant to the 100% method. Same remainder of the caption as before. And then 22-01201, an ordinance by Councilmember Liliana Bakhtiari to provide for the annexation of property located at 1363 Black Oak Drive Southeast, Atlanta, Georgia 30316, into the corporate limits of the City of Atlanta, Georgia, pursuant to the 100% method. Rest of the caption remains the same. I understand that these have moved through the appropriate other committees, including a public hearing, and is ready to move forward. Ms. Bakhtiari, would you like to make the motion on this? All right, motion from Bakhtiari to approve all four items, seconded by Winston. Is that right? Okay. Let's open the vote, please.
Vote is open. The vote is closed.
7 yeas, 0 nays. The motion carries. All four annexation papers are approved by this committee. Congratulations. All right, I think that's all of the items off of held. Motion from Shook to adjourn. Is there a second? No. Okay. All right, that takes us to Section M, budget papers held in committee. All right, here we go. So I'm going to read in all the captions. We need to substitute 3 of them. One of them will remain held, but let's go ahead and just do that, get the mechanics out of the way, and then we can open up for our conversation. So the first item is 22-01332, an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee to amend section number listed of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Atlanta, Georgia, so as to change the ad valorem tax rate of real and personal property for the general levy, debt levy, city parks levy, school operating levy, school debt levy, the special tax district levy, and the special service district levy, to provide that the tax rates established herein shall remain fixed each year until amended or repealed, and for other purposes. We do have a substitute for that. I'll make a motion to bring forward the substitute. Is there a second? Seconded by Bakhtiari. Let's open the vote to bring forward the substitute.
The vote is open.
All right, 7 yeas, 0 nays. The motion carries. We have the substitute before us. So can we? All right, so we have the substitute for that before us now. Next item is 22-01337. This is an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee adopting the fiscal year 2023 proposed budget to include all funds and for other purposes. There is a substitute in your packet as well. I will make a motion to bring forward that substitute. I need a second, please. Seconded by Dozier. Let's open that vote.
Vote is open. The vote is closed.
7 yeas, 0 nays. That motion carries. That substitute is before us. And then 22-01390, this is the personnel paper, an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee as substituted by the Atlanta City Council to amend Chapter 114, Personnel, Article 4, Classification Plan of the Code of Ordinances, City of Atlanta, Georgia, so as to provide for certain position abolishments, creations, reclassifications, class creations, above entry authorizations, employee position transfers, position funding allocation changes, and other personnel actions in line with the FY 2023 budget and for other purposes. I'll move to bring forward that substitute. Can I get a second, please? Seconded by Bond. Motion by Juan, second Bond. Let's open that.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
All right, so we have the substitutes before us. Colleagues, item number 53, I'll go back to afterwards. That one we will end up holding until later in the summer when the Fulton County and school boards have adopted their millage rates. Okay, let's start with the budget paper, and I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Wilson or whoever on the finance team to kind of walk us through the substitute, and then we can start discussing the proposed amendments. Dr. Wilson.
Thank you, Chairman Juan. Chief Davis is going to begin with the mill paper, and then I'll jump in on the budget ordinance.
Hello again, Lawrence Davis, Jr., Revenue Chief. The resolution before you, well, the ordinance before you, this one is just a preliminary millage rate ordinance, which will be in line with the proposed, that will be presented and aligned with the proposed budget ordinance, budget adoption that will take place on June the 21st. We will bring forth another adoption for the final millage rate legislation once receipt of the tax digest from Fulton and DeKalb County and the millage rates from Atlanta Public School System and DeKalb Library.
All right, and for transparency, the millage paper in front of us does contemplate the action that was taken in city utilities yesterday, correct, in terms of solid waste fees?
Correct. The millage rate paper before us does show the change due to the solid waste service.
Okay. And colleagues, for those that weren't tuned into city utilities, actually, Mr. Shook, I don't know if you want to walk us through, but it was the common services piece was approved by that committee to be funded out of the general fund to the tune of about $20 million for this year, with a 2-year sunset on the overall solid waste and recycling fees, with a requirement that the administration do a study and analysis covering all other alternatives and efficiencies. So that kind of catches you up to speed, but that's why there's a millage rate adjustment to accommodate that decision yesterday. All right, any questions for Mr. Bond? Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Does this result in an increase in our millage rate?
The millage rate will go from the 10.23 to 10.90.
So that's an increase?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
All right, other questions? Okay, thank you. So, Dr. Wilson, are we in a position where we're ready to adopt? I feel like we have to adopt the budget first before we then go, oh no, wait, it's the other way around. The millage rate sets the revenue. Okay, all right, so any questions on the millage rate paper, which is substituted before us now? All right, is there a motion? I will make the motion to approve on substitute. Is there a second? Seconded by Winston. Any discussion on this paper? All right, seeing none, let's open the vote on item, make sure I'm calling it out right, 22-0-1332.
The vote is open. Vote is closed.
5 yeas, 1 nay, 0 abstention. The motion carries. All right, so this will move forward with a recommendation from our committee. So that brings us to the 22-0-1337. Dr.
Yes, thank you.
Wilson, sorry.
This substitute does a couple things. Your previous version had X's in Section 1. We have now populated Section 1 with each revenue anticipation. Also accommodates the outcome from yesterday's committee meeting for the $20 million on the general fund, bringing that previously $734.2 million for the general fund up to $754.2 for the general fund.
All right, any questions on that or what she just presented? All right, now we get to the amendments. So, colleagues, you have a packet of many, many pages. So what we'll need to do is essentially go through each one, each page as a separate amendment, correct? All right, so let's take page 1. Actually, Dr. Wilson, I'm going to have you walk us through that one. Not line by line necessarily, but if, in general, if you could explain what's happening on this one amendment.
Okay, so the first amendment is to adjust the revenue and expense side for the $20 million that we just discussed. We have an increase of, and we worked with the department on how to make this allocation of the $20 million. So you see it on the general fund revenue side. On the expense side, you will also see it in DPW.
Okay. All right, so Ms. Kempson-Wright has explained to me that in the last couple of years what we've done is we've just gone through each one of them and then taken them all in bulk and mass. Unless there's an objection to a particular page. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to go through each page, get an explanation, and then providing there aren't any objections, then we'll take these all en masse. All right, so any questions on page 1? All right, seeing none, let's move on to page 2. Dr. Wilson, is there anything in terms of your explanation, an explanation on these amendments?
Yes, so the second amendment is to accommodate the general fund portion of the raises for firefighters.
All right, questions on page 2? All right, seeing none, let's move on to page 3.
The third amendment is to accommodate a software purchase for the ethics division in the Office of the Inspector General.
Wait, hang on a second. No, I think I'm off here.
Mr. Chair, there's a label floor amendment number. Would that be helpful in navigating?
I'm going by the floor amendment number. There is a page number at the bottom. Yeah.
I got you. All right, so we are on to floor amendment number. You just explained floor amendment number 2. Any questions on that? That was the fire salary adjustments. All right, seeing none, floor amendment number 3.
Floor amendment number 3?
Yep. Yeah, you just said the ethics department software. Any questions on this one? All right, floor amendment number 4.
Floor amendment number 4 is for video equipment for the judicial agencies for $69,000.
Okay. Any questions from my colleagues on this amendment? All right, next one, floor amendment 5.
Floor amendment number 5 is to fund House Proud Atlanta for senior home repairs at $100,000.
Right, questions on this one? All right, seeing none, let's move on to floor amendment number 6.
Number 6 is to fund the Fulton Technology and Energy Enhancement Authority for $100,000.
Questions? All right, seeing none, we'll keep moving. Floor amendment number 7.
Floor amendment number 7 is to fund the Human Relations Commission for $50,000.
All right, questions on this one? All right, floor amendment number 8.
Floor amendment number 8 is to increase the funding for the Streets Alive program by $150,000.
And questions on this one? All right, floor amendment number 9.
Floor amendment number 9 is to fund the Atlanta City Council Shared Support Services, an increase of $150,000.
All right, questions? All right, seeing none, number 10.
Amendment number 10 is to fund the small business associations for each council district, at-large districts, and city council president at $20,000 per, for a total of $280,000.
Any questions on this one from my colleagues? Mr. President Shipman.
I just want to briefly speak to this and thank the administration for the inclusion. The idea here, and Councilmember Bakhtiari as well has been working very hard on this, is to enable small business associations across the city to interact, to be stronger so they can interact better with the city, so that they can actually take advantage of the programs that we fund, Invest Atlanta and otherwise. And COVID really obviously has taken a huge hit against these small business associations. So this is really a trial to see if by strengthening them it actually helps their ability to interact with the city. And I think it's a strong innovation, and I'm excited about it.
Will this be administered by Invest Atlanta? Did I hear you say that?
It'll be administered. The idea is that the council members know best their districts, and so that they would actually be the ones that would be directing the funding to say this small business association in my district, and then the at-large members would be able to fund ones that serve the entire city. I think it's a real innovation. It's a trial, but I think it's going to lead to both efficiencies and strengthening of small business associations, which grows the overall economy.
All right. Councilmember Shook, then Bakhtiari.
Yeah, okay, good. Thank you. So are we going to get process guidance? And if so, is it going to be Invest Atlanta in terms of the mechanics?
That is TBD, but I think given their support of Small Business Association, that'd be the anticipation.
Thank you.
Bakhtiari.
Yes, that seconding everything that Council President Shook said. Oh my gosh, Council President Shipman said. I am tired. It's been a long month. And also keeping in mind that, with all of this also is brought about by the understanding and hearing back from all the small businesses and small business associations, the difficulties with permitting and the costs that go into that, and the fact that small businesses are, quite frankly, the backbone of our local economy, and propping them up also helps us keep residents and legacy residents and mom and pop businesses here strong and thriving, not just barely surviving. So again, to this point, it allows council members to step up and actually support the businesses in their communities at large, and council president to support the ones that they see fit. And this hopefully will be a pilot that we can prove the success of this year and hopefully fight for it to be a regular line item in the budget moving forward.
Thank you. Did I hear you correctly that this is actually increasing funds that were already included in the budget, that the total is to be deployed will be? No.
So there's not an increase in the bottom line budget. We're able to accommodate this ask within
yeah, but the total amount that's applied to this program, there was already some funding in the original proposed budget, and this is an increase on top of that, or is this just fresh money?
This is it. It's $20,000 per.
Okay. Other questions on this amendment? All right, moving on. Amendment number 11.
Amendment number 11 is to increase funding for senior programming within Parks and Rec for $100,000.
All right. Questions? Comments? All right, item number 12.
Amendment number 12 is to increase funding for salaries and benefits within the law department for water and wastewater fund.
Okay, questions on Amendment 12? All right, let's go to 13.
13 is similar to 12. It is to increase the funding for salaries and benefits within the law department for the aviation fund. So they've done some reallocations, and you'll see a couple of those, but this is a second one for the law department.
Okay, now Amendment 14, kind of jumping ahead, is also for law as well, right? So it's similar?
Yes,
okay.
The renewal and extension fund in aviation.
All right, Mr. Shook.
Okay, same question for all three of these. How much of a disparity is there in pay between the enterprise fund lawyers and general fund lawyers? And is this going to exacerbate that gap?
I would have to ask the HR department to evaluate across the law department to answer that.
Is there anyone from law here that, or I see HR?
Good afternoon. Jeffrey Norman, Commissioner of Human Resources. So if I understand your question correctly, it's as to whether or not there is disparity in the salary amounts based on those respective funds, general fund versus the actual enterprise funds. And so my understanding is because you're looking at those same classifications, they do hire and obviously, compensate individuals based on, background, expertise, but there is no disparity relative from an equity standpoint based on which fund you ultimately reside in.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on, so we're basically 12, 13, and 14 are similar, just different funds. Any questions on these? Okay, on to 15.
Floor amendment number 15.
And 16 are together.
Right, it's a similar exercise for the Ethics Division within the Office of the Inspector General. 15 addresses the funding within the Water and Wastewater Fund, and amendment number 16 addresses the Aviation Fund.
I have a question. That I see the source of funds on this one is decrease in reserves. So are we? Which reserves?
It's reserves in the enterprise fund.
Okay.
Not general fund reserves.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. Other questions on 15 and 16, OIG salary and benefit increase? Mr. Shook.
Nope. Are the reserve funds in those two enterprise funds managed so that, as in the case of the general, so for the general fund, what we don't want to be doing is increasing salaries, right? Do the same restrictions or policies apply to the enterprise funds in terms of taking on a recurring sunk cost out of reserves?
I understand your question correctly. What the enterprise funds have done in order to accommodate the right sizing of the allocation, they have used their reserve funds within their enterprise. So there's no impact on the general fund at all.
No. Good. No impact on the general fund, but we know it's considered, bad public policy to fund salary enhancements out of reserves, right? And so my question is, do those same guidelines and philosophies apply to the reserve funds within the enterprise funds?
That's correct. And these are not funding any sort of pay increase. These are salary allocations for people that do work for aviation or watershed, and their salaries are split funded.
Shook, I see City Attorney.
Okay, and I'm just reading what's in front of me, increase in salaries and benefits, but if you,
Yes, if you will recall when we made our report, I'm sorry, this is Nina Hickson, City Attorney. When we made our report to the Finance Committee, we indicated that there were going to be amendments coming because at the point that the budget was loaded, they took a date certain in terms of personnel, and there were a number of positions that were unfunded where we had people sitting in the positions. And so it's not a matter of giving people in the funds, the watershed or aviation fund, any more salary than others. It was a matter of making sure that persons who were actually sitting in those seats were being paid.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions on these two? There is a follow-on question, though. But is there the similar restraint exercise in the enterprise fund reserves that there is in the general fund? And who I don't know if you have an answer, but who does manage that restraint?
So those enterprise fund reserves are managed within either the CFO or the commissioner of those enterprise funds.
So at least y'all are keeping a watchful eye on that. Okay, very good. All right, other questions on 15 and 16? All right, let's move to 17.
Floor amendment number 17 is the aviation portion of the fire raises.
Okay. Questions on this? I mean, again, just noticing that it's, again, reserves, the aviation reserves. This one is, you said it is the salary increases, and it's not funding positions that were not previously funded or, okay, so that is...
This million, the first million you saw in the general fund and this $333,000 are specifically for firefighter recruits and...
all right, and I'll let Councilmember Shook's just caution around funding raises out of reserve, but I understand the importance of this particular initiative. So other questions on that one? All right, number 18. 18 and 19 and 20 and 21 all go together. So if you want to talk about them in aggregate, that'd be fine.
Right. So the next set of floor amendments are addressing funding for Oracle post-implementation. We accommodated the general fund portion already seated in the budget. There's no impact on the general fund, but do need to accommodate the allocation to the other enterprise funds as well, and this is done via these amendments.
All right. Questions on 18, 19, 20, and 21 regarding the Oracle post-implementation project? All right, seeing none, let's go to 22.
Floor amendment number 22 is a similar exercise with accommodating the salaries and benefits for the IPR office within the Office of Inspector General for the Water and Wastewater Fund. They were underfunded last year, and so we were right-sizing the funding. You'll see a similar amendment coming next too.
Yeah, so 23 and 24 similar ones just coming out of 23 is aviation and 24 is waste and water and wastewater.
Right.
Okay. Questions on 23 and 24? All right, let's go to 25.
One quick thing, Chairman Wan, on floor amendment number 24.
Oh, sorry.
I have the street sweeping.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Okay. 24. My bad.
That is the increase for street sweeping within the Department of Public Works for water and wastewater for $145,763.
I do have a question on this one. Decrease in lease purchase of equipment, is that within Public Works?
It is.
And what are we giving up in terms of much needed equipment that they have in order to do this? Do we know? Is there someone from Public Works here that can speak to that? I'm concerned because during Public Works presentation we did talk about equipment being a need, and I don't want to rob Peter to pay Paul. All right, let's put a pin in that and come back. Hopefully someone from Public Works or the administration can come to speak to item number 24. All right, Dr. Wilson, let's go ahead and go to 25. The final, 25 is second to the last.
Amendment number 25 is to increase the premium pay for frontline employees within the Department of Watershed Management. This is in alignment with the premium pay for other workers, and it's for $750,000.
And so this brings parity to the other departments that were doing premium pay, is that correct?
That's correct. This is bringing Watershed into that equation.
Okay. Any questions on item 25? All right. Takes us to 26.
26 is to fund the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, the $7 million I think we've been familiar with, in order to increase the funding within the Affordable Housing Trust Fund.
And the Fund 7701 and 1001 are specifically what?
7701 is the trust fund, and 1001 is the general fund. It's coming out of non-departmental.
So I had heard that the funding for this was going to be out of ARPA funds. Is that consistent with what I guess not understanding the specific funds? Is that correct?
So it is not ARPA funds because we need to ensure eligibility around COVID impact and so forth, and I'm not sure that we're as far down the road to be able to refine that scope.
Okay.
So in order to avoid leaping out there with ARPA funds and then getting our hands slapped, we decided to go a different route with the funding.
All right, so this is now for FY23 coming out of general fund at non-departmental. Is that right?
Non-departmental.
Okay. All right. All right, questions on amendment number 26? Okay. Has anyone from the administration appeared for my question on 24? Okay. So Ms. Kempson-Wright has reached out to the department on that one. Okay. Any other discussion on amendments? Mr. Bond.
I have one that I've asked Ms. Wright to write for me, so I'm waiting on it.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead. Mr. Bond, you have the floor.
Thank you. This is an amendment for Ordinance 22-01337. It would be for amendment number 27. Amendment for the proposed budget for design and construction services for the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Project. Source of the funding is the Park Improvement Fund. It's $670,000.
All right, questions for Mr. Bond on his, this amount is the now projected cost, installation cost?
Amount.
For every, including?
Everything.
All right. And someone needs to remind me, the Park Improvement Fund, in terms of its, the parameters of its expenditure, is that?
It's designed for this type of purpose, to improve parks and maintenance.
I just want to, yeah, is that correct, Dr. Wells?
Yeah, but we would need to have some conversation with Parks in order to identify the exact fund account string and make sure that there's availability there.
All right, and I just want to confirm also, obviously you've put this forward, but Mr. Pace, you've had a conversation with him, and the administration has supported.
Pace with the last 48 hours.
Okay, all right. Mr. Dozier, and I think, okay. Any other questions on Mr. Bond? Yes, Mr. Shook.
Yeah, I think we're going to need to know what's in the Park Improvement Fund in terms of unallocated.
I didn't hear what he said.
Can we repeat the question?
Yeah, I think we'll want to know what this account looks like, particularly to see what the unallocated pool is within it.
I don't know what the balance is, but I've been assured by the CFO within the last 72 hours that funds are there for this.
That's my request.
The balance is.
Thank you.
All right. And is that something that we can get during the course of this meeting? I guess is my.
It's not something we can get in the course of this meeting, but we can get it before Tuesday.
Okay. All right. Other questions or comments on amendment number 27? Yeah, Miss, you were waiting until after. Okay. All right. Now that we're done with that, Mr. Dozier.
Just for Dr. Wilson's awareness, and I know the CFO Ball is watching from somewhere else. I've already flagged this for Theo, but there's a budget amendment that I would like to pursue related to open checkbook. My understanding is that the open checkbook contract that we have expires at the end of this month, and so just wanted to flag that for your awareness that I'll be reaching out, and I know Theo will be as well, to try to see if we can get that addressed through this process too.
So that one, or I think you said you had a couple others? Or?
No, that was just that one.
Okay, do you have just about
No, it was made. I was made aware about 30 minutes ago. So,
okay, all right.
Just wanted to bring it up now so y'all know that it's coming.
Okay. All right. Any questions from Mr. Dozier on the open checkbook amendment that will be forthcoming? Basically to renew the contract and extend it. Okay. Okay. All right. With this packet in front of us, I'm actually going to ask to pull the one that I'm asking for more information on, number 24, the street sweeping one and the lease purchase equipment. So I'm going to ask to pull that one from the packet. Is there any others that anyone else would like to pull? Mr. Shook.
Yeah, and if I'm slow or I've missed something, any of you feel free to help me out here. I'm still not completely understanding of, it seems to me that as regards, salary increases to be paid for by a, quote, decrease in reserves, I'm still not completely comfortable. Seems to me we're doing one or the other. Either we're just making some adjustments, but they're not coming out of the reserves, in which case this needs to be phrased differently, or we're about to approve recurring sunk salary costs out of reserve. So it's one or the other, and I'm going to need a little more help understanding which of the two it is.
So when it comes to the scenario that we've talked about today with the enterprise funds, part of this is timing. So when we were establishing the proposed budget, there's an exercise that the departments go through in order to reevaluate where people's split-funded positions are being charged. And sometimes there are corrections that need to be made because maybe last year you worked on mostly aviation and this year your job changed a little bit and you're working more on watershed. So departments will go through an exercise to right-size the salaries that are being charged to the enterprise funds. The timing by which they've done that analysis and then come back and speak with the enterprise departments and say, this is wrong, this needs to be changed and corrected, may prompt those enterprise funds to then pull funds from their reserves, which is worse similar to the general fund, but they tend to have, because their enterprise funds have more reserves to work with. So there are...
Tons of money, yeah.
That answer your question?
Alex, am I missing something? Aren't we running the risk of okaying future sunk costs out of reserve funds? Something's amiss here.
I can't disagree with you on that. I mean, I understand it as a stopgap potentially, based on kind of the unfunded positions that the city attorney mentioned. I mean, I understand the need to do that. I don't like the practice or I'm troubled by the source of the firefighter one, although I understand the importance of that as well. But I'm going to look to it displace, what's the right word? That we not do this again next year. I mean, but you're right. Once you break the seal, how do you unring the bell?
Public policy 101.
Firefighters from the general
use the reserves for one-offs.
Sorry, Dr. Wilson.
The firefighters funding for the general fund is not coming from
right, not the general fund, but the aviation piece of it is coming from their reserve.
Because they had already set their budget, and at this point we came back and said we need to make an adjustment.
I mean, I understand the enterprise funds. One of the problems here is that they're wallowing in cash, and that has led to all kinds of problems, as I think it's arguably doing right now. But I'll pray on it and hope that someone's going to show me the light between now and Tuesday.
I understand the Deputy Commissioner Anu is here to speak to Amendment number 24. I don't know if you've heard, but specifically, it's essentially moving money out of equipment lease purchase of equipment into professional services for street sweeping. Just want to know what we're displacing, and again, echoing what I thought I heard with the Public Works presentation about the need for maintaining our fleet. So to the extent that you can speak to that and get me comfortable with that, that'd be helpful.
Well, certainly. Good afternoon, Councilmember Warren, members of the committee. Deputy Commissioner Anu with the Department of Public Works. As you mentioned, yes, sir, that is accurate. Our sweeper situation for the CSA area for Department of Watershed Management, we desperately do need the options to adhere to our fleet replacement program for those sweepers. The sweepers that we have in place, some of those units are 2015 models. Unfortunately, right now with the supply chain logistics, the difficulties for us trying to maintain a sweeper in a timely fashion is about a year time frame for us to actually acquire that piece of equipment. We are looking and trying to source a sweeper in a timelier fashion. However, right now the current time frames is about a year time frame out to actually acquire one.
Okay, so this basically is a shift from actually getting the sweeper equipment to contracting it out just so that we can meet the performance metrics. Is that fair? That's accurate.
Unfortunately, the circumstances and time frame right now is unfortunately the crunch for us now. I will politely request, though, if we are able to source one mid-year to see if possibilities for us to actually acquire and put that in place, because that will definitely help us out with maintaining that CSA area.
Yep, understand. Other questions for the Deputy Commissioner while he's up there about this one? That one satisfies my question. So.
Thanks, sir.
All right. With that, then, so I'll put that one back into the stack. Discussion. Any other discussions on any of the amendments? All right. Is there a need to pull any of the amendments out, or are we comfortable taking them as a block? So, does any of my colleagues have a need to pull any out? If I don't hear any, that means we're going to move forward with them as a block. Yeah, we have that in 27. Anything? Okay. Then the entire stack is in front of us. All right. Mr. Pace.
I do have a question. Good afternoon, committee. Theo Pace, Deputy Chief of Staff for the Mayor's Office. I don't know if this block of amendments that you're mentioning, does it include the floor amendment that Mr. Bond presented?
As of right now, it does, yes.
Okay. It would be, we're trying to work out the funding of the balance of the Park Improvement Fund as mentioned. There's a way that we could schedule a meeting to discuss this prior to that amendment being voted upon. And I don't know if the council member would be amenable to presenting it as a floor amendment at Tuesday's council meeting.
All right. Mr. Bond, any response to that?
Well, we're in committee now, and we're doing committee work, and when you were in my office the other day, you said that you had signed off on the project. The funds are there. The CFO told me that in the elevator. So, I mean, what would be the need to regroup?
When we discussed it in your office, I don't think we committed to. I made sure that I was aware of the amendment and was discussing it.
No, you specifically said you had signed it off on at your desk prior to coming over to my office.
I said I submitted it to the chief financial officer and his team.
Right.
That's what I said.
And I saw the CFO the other day in the elevator, and I asked him specifically if funds are available, and the funds are available.
Okay.
So,
well, we're trying to work with the Parks Commissioner to ensure that none of those that funding is not already committed to other projects.
Well, it's not committed. You've got $6 million in debt. You've got you got $1.2 million for salaries. And then you have the balance that goes into park maintenance and improvement that is unencumbered.
Correct. I don't want to make it seem like the administration is not open to your amendment, but just would like to request some additional time to review it.
Well, Mr. Chair, I'd be more comfortable passing these as a block. I don't have any problem talking to the administration. If there is an alternative source of funding that comes up before Tuesday, then we can address it then. But I'd like for it to remain in the block and to go forward because the funds are available.
I think the administration's stance is that they would feel more comfortable getting kind of confirmation from the Parks Commissioner. Just trying to get him on the phone and get him down here, but We'd just like some additional time,
I've talked to the Parks Commissioner, Mr. Pace, over the last 2 months. I've talked to the CFO.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, I've talked to him, and as I've stated, that's where I got the information of the breakdown of what's available in the fund. I got it from the Parks Commissioner. I'm very familiar with the Park Improvement Fund. I've used that fund to build 4 facilities for the city of Atlanta. The Washington Park Natatorium, C.T. Martin Natatorium, and 2 other facilities in Districts 1 and District 4. So I'm very familiar with it. But I've just stated to the chair what I'm comfortable with. What I'm comfortable with is sitting down with you or whomever else before Tuesday, but I'd like the amendment to go as a block with the others. If there is an alternative found, if we can find some other place for the funding, that's great. I'm open to that.
I mean, I think the administration is committed to sitting down and meeting with you prior to Tuesday, just not comfortable with moving forward with that amendment today.
Well,
so I can commit that we can meet tomorrow or Friday prior to Tuesday's council meeting.
Well, I mean, I'm not negotiating about what you're comfortable with my amendment.
Okay.
I said I'm comfortable sitting down with you, and if we can find an alternative source of funding, I'm open to it. But as far as what we have on the table today, I'd like for it to go forward. And if we do find an alternative, I'll pull it. Okay. But I'd like to go forward today. I mean, that's the state-allotted, mandated place where these type of improvements should be funded from, is the Park Improvement Fund. So from my perspective, even if we do find an alternative, the appropriate space is always the Park Improvement Fund to improve parks.
Correct. There are just some outstanding questions. It says, you know, the funding's one thing, but actually who would administer the project if there are additional grant funds that could be, you know, made available to support it. So it's not that the administration is not open to the project, just have some outstanding questions, that's all.
All right, Mr.
I mean, it would be underneath parks. I mean, they would have to go to procurement and get it done. I mean, it would be under their bailiwick. They would have control. This doesn't take the control away.
All right, Mr. Bond and Mr. Pace, as y'all know, all through this process, I have asked everybody with amendments to make sure that they move through Mr. Pace and socialize with colleagues in advance of this meeting with the specific intent of wanting things like this to be resolved before they get here, including funding accounts, sources, and all that. So I'm going to ask that we pull this from because there seems to be some mixed messages here. We can vote on this separately today, and it may still move forward to Monday, but in terms of just my readiness in this and versus the ones that are in the packet, I am going to ask to pull this.
And again, you know, it's a worthy project. The administration is
in
a meeting with the council member.
I understand. I think, you know, what I'm hearing from you is that they're not refusing this amendment. You just need a little more time to figure out this out. And Mr. Bond, I think you're probably right at the end of the day in terms of Park Improvement Fund, but in terms of the process I had asked for today, this one feels like an outlier at this point in terms of adding it to the en masse. We will just vote on and discuss this separately from the others.
Well, just to respond
yes, sir,
to that,
respond.
You know, I reached out to Ms. Kimson Wright this morning because we passed a resolution through this council of the projects we wanted to see in the budget. This was one of those projects.
No, I believe the resolution was that you directed the CFO to seek potential sources of funds for the project, and it was included in a potential. You're saying it was included in a potential budget priority.
Right. So this is one of those projects, and so I asked her today. I said, "Hey, do I need to make an amendment, or what do we need to do?" I spoke, Mr. Pace was in my office 48 hours ago. I've spoken to the Commissioner of Parks several times. I've talked to the CFO several times. I've talked to Mr. Donald several times. And so, you know, I apologize, but, you know, people often have told me, and, you know, I don't want to upset precedent, but I've been here a while, and the committee is the place to do work, right? That's what people say.
That's what they've told me. They told me that in the 90s. They told me that in the 10s, and now it's the 20s. And so, I don't feel. I hope I haven't upset the apple cart, and I hope that the veterans that are watching this and those who have families who have paid the ultimate sacrifice, aren't begrudged or bruised by the fact that we have a project that's eligible for the Park Improvement Fund. Funds are there, and yet we can't immediately act on it.
So again, for the purposes of our process today, we're going to go ahead and come back to this one separately, and we can debate that at that time. And it sounds like, again, if I'm just interpreting what you're saying, is that y'all just need a little more time to work with the author of this to potentially finalize the source of funds on this.
That's correct.
Okay. All right, Mr. Bond, so let me just put a pin in that. We're going to come back and address, and we can talk about that a little bit more. Any other amendments from the packet, 1 through 26, that anyone wants to pull at this point? All right, if not, I will make a motion to amend the budget paper to incorporate these amendments. Is there a second? A second from Winston. Is there any discussion on that motion to amend? All right, seeing none. Did I see your hand, Ms. Waits? No? Okay. Seeing none, let's open the vote on amendments 1 through 26.
Vote is open.
The vote is closed.
5 yeas, 0 nays, 1 abstention. The motion carries. The amendments have passed. Mr. Shook.
Yeah, just to explain my vote, there's such a big percentage of these.
That's fair.
You have to do with the questions I'm getting snippets of information, so I think I'm going to get to the end of the tunnel. I'm just not there just yet, but thank you.
All right, thank you. So those amendments have now been incorporated into the budget paper. Let's take up now item number 27. This is Mr. Bond's paper amendment with regard to the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Park. I do have a question on this, though. The typical procedure in terms of the Park Improvement Fund, wouldn't we normally do a separate paper that authorizes there's two ways of doing that. One could be that we do it within the budget, but the other is another paper that just moves it through and identifies the Park Improvement Fund as the source of funds, correct? And then that would end up being vetted by the committee of Purview, the CDHS committee. Is that correct, process-wise? Okay. So I'm just also trying to make sure we still have plenty of paths forward on this, potentially, if that ends up being the appropriate fund. Right? Okay. All right, Mr. Bond, yes, please.
Just to respond to you, Mr. Wan, there are a million ways to do it, but this is the budget. This is our list of our priorities for the city, and it is appropriate to do it in this fashion.
Mr. Bond, I respect that. I guess where I'm getting concerned, though, is that there's now question about the balance of the unencumbered balance of the funds. The administration has raised questions about mentioning the commissioner as well. These are parts of the deliberative process, and if we can't get the answers now, that's where I have pause of moving this forward. All the other ones, we've kind of talked about sources of funds, and there was kind of clarity and readiness, whereas this one there seems to be lingering questions. And you're right, this is kind of where we should be doing it, but we can't get the answers that I need in terms of moving this forward. Then there's unreadiness on my part. But go ahead, Mr. Bond, you're good.
Well, just to respond to you, Mr. Wan, I already said to Mr. Pace, before you pulled the amendment, I said if we can meet tomorrow, he said he was willing to meet tomorrow, I'm open to that. We can, if there was an alternative source of funding by Tuesday, then I would have substituted the amendment. That would have been the simplest way, and probably, frankly, the most courteous way to have dealt with this. But I'm prepared to continue to do it again, but I would like to see the amendment advance. There's a group of the sons of Vietnam veterans who are residents of Atlanta who've been watching this process. They're watching this meeting. And I think, from the text messages I'm getting, they're very concerned. And, these are people who, fought in a war that they were not embraced when they came back and have suffered unduly as a part of their service. And so, I understand wanting to have a good level of comfortability, but for the people that I'm advocating for today, this is disturbing. I mean, the funds are there. I can't just keep repeating it. Ultimately, it's the council's decision. The administration obviously presents the budget. The council has the right to amend and approve it, but we ultimately approve it. And so we want everybody to be comfortable. I said 15 minutes ago, I'd sit down. I'd like the courtesy of having the amendment advance. And if, another alternative comes, of course, these amendments are written on paper, not stone. We can substitute it or change it come Tuesday.
So, Mr. Bond, I appreciate it, and I hope those that are watching are not hearing anything that I'm saying that discredits the merit of the project. I think it's a good project. I think it's my job as the Finance Executive Committee Chair is on the funding piece of this. And so, to me, that's my due diligence that I have to do, is I have to make sure that the funds are there. And I appreciate you're telling me that, but the source that I have to rely on is the Finance Department and the departments that oversee any trust funds. So I feel like that's my responsibility to answer those questions. Again, not to the merit of the project, and I hope no one is offended by my pushback of this. What I'm also hearing, what I also asked was process-wise with the budget amendments that everyone reach an accord in terms of us and the administration before it comes to today. And what I'm hearing is that there isn't yet. And what I'm asking for is, what I'm trying to afford is additional time before Tuesday to get that worked out. It sounds like the administration wants to work towards that. But again, my conditions and the requests that I made for this amendment have not been met. And so I'm trying to do my job as Finance Executive Committee Chair. And so please don't try and characterize this as I'm trying to offend those that are being honored. I'm just trying to respect the job that I've been charged with.
I wasn't trying to characterize you like that.
It felt like there was a suggestion of that.
But I'm trying to make the point, though, that when people represent things, when we talk, and I've talked to many people in administration, it comes down to the road. Don't just kiss me in the dark, kiss me in the light. Okay? Understand?
Yeah, I do, and I think that is a fair thing to take up with the administration. I guess all I'm doing is I can only receive what I'm receiving up here at this point. All right, I'm assuming you have a motion to amend.
Yes, I've put forth the
Very good.
amendment, and I hope our colleagues will give me the courtesy of having it advance.
All right, is there a second to his amendment, to his motion to amend? All right, Mr. Bond, without a second, and I know you're going to bring up the issue about no needs for second in committee, but I think that's at the committee chair's discretion, and then that's how I'm...
No, that's the council rules. Point of order. That is the rules of the council. We have not amended our procedures to require seconds.
Well, I will second your motion for the ability to vote on it if that's what you want.
Yes, that's what I want.
Okay. All right, then I will do it. And I'll tell you, for me, I'm not going to support this, and I don't want to do that, because I would like to give you more time with the administration, as they have offered to work this out before Tuesday. Let me finish. But it has not met what I would need to be ready to vote on this today. And I'm sorry, Mr. Bond, because again, I do think this is a worthy project, but as I laid out before, the processes that I've laid out for myself on this one do not put me in a position to be able to support this at this time.
Well, Mr. Warren, I'd say that you have two options. You don't have to vote no. You can abstain. Okay? You don't have to vote no. But what I am asking for is for it to advance. I said 15 minutes ago, before you made your motion to pull off, that I would meet with the administration. I already said I was willing to do it, and I'm going to do it, to give us a time. It doesn't matter what time it is.
I gotcha.
I'll meet with them, so that's not in dispute. What I'm asking for now is the courtesy of the committee to advance it on behalf of those of whom I advocate for. And so, you don't have to put yourself in a position to vote no. You can abstain.
That's very true. Thank you.
And so I would just appeal to all the members of the committee here, not for myself, but for those who I've advocated for, who met the mayor at his religious breakfast, who are excited about the project, who have suffered much disappointment in their lives and from their service. That if we're all saying this is a great project, we're all saying that we want to see it happen, let's keep the motion and momentum going on the project. That's all. That's all I'm saying.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Bond. Mr. Shook? Any other discussion on the motion to amend? All right. Seeing none, let's open, and this is amendment number 27. So let's open the vote, please.
The vote is open.
All right, 2 yeas, 5 nays, the motion fails. So the paper is not amended. All right, so with that, are there any other amendments to come before the body in terms of the budget paper at this point? Okay, if not, the amended budget paper is before us. That is item 22-01337. It's been substituted and amended. So I'll move to approve on substitute as amended that item. Is there a second? Seconded by Winston. All right. Any final discussion on the amended substituted budget paper? All right. Seeing none, let's open the vote on that, please.
Vote is open.
Six yeas, 0 nays, 1 abstention. The motion carries. This paper will move forward with that recommendation. All right, the next item is 22-01390. It's been substituted before us. This is the personnel paper. Discussion, questions on this? And I assume that the substitute does include all of the actions that we've talked about, including the funding amendments we just did, the fire salary increases, everything that has been presented to us thus far. Is that correct, Dr. Wilson?
Yes, I have Commissioner Norman address that, but on the funding side, we're good.
And while he's walking up there, Commissioner, thank you for the table that you put together on all the summary of all the actions across the departments. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Councilmember Juan and members of the committee. Jeffrey Norman, HR Commissioner. So subsequent to the personnel paper discussion review that we had with City Council, there are an additional 26 transactions that does finalize the tier chart, the updated tier chart to effectuate the Atlanta Fire Rescue Department salary increases. So that is included in the substitute. The majority of the revisions or additions to the paper are to make sure that we did incorporate the actions for the City Council as well. And so that you'll see that we noted those. And then there were a couple of deletions under procurement where we removed some position creations and some reclasses. But this does include all of the things that we have discussed, and it does finalize the AFRD rates that were agreed upon by the administration and the fire union.
So are we to get, so we're not to expect another substitute Tuesday?
No, we are 100% complete. So this, unless there is something that comes up between now and final adoption, we don't anticipate any additional things to include here in the personnel paper.
All right, other questions for the Commissioner on the personnel paper? All right, seeing none, I'll move to approve on substitute. Is there a second? Seconded by Shook. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, let's open the vote on that, please.
The vote is open.
All right, 7 yeas, 0 nays, 0 abstention. That motion carries. The paper will move forward with our recommendation. All right, that takes us to the final budget paper, which is 22-01389, an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee to amend section numbers listed of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Atlanta so as to change the ad valorem tax rate of real and personal property for the general levy, debt levy, city parks levy, school operating levy, school debt levy, and the special tax district levy, the Atlanta Beltline Special Service District levy, and the solid waste special service district levy, to provide that tax rates established herein shall remain fixed each year until amended or repealed and for other purposes. Colleagues, as I described earlier, we will hold this until the school board and county set their levy rates. So I'll move to hold. So seconded by Winston. Oh, it's already held? Okay. I'll withdraw my motion. All right. So as we, I think that's the last legislative piece. As we move into Tuesday, we're sending forward a budget with a recommendation, understanding that Councilmember Dozier is going to come back with an amendment on the floor in terms of the open checkbook. Mr. Bond, I suspect you will bring your amendment forward again on Tuesday. I think if you can have that conversation, we'll have an opportunity to open that back up now that you've begun socializing it with us here.
I live to fight another day.
Yep. No. I mean, no. I think it sounds like take advantage of the administration's, commitment to finding you.
Well, I was prepared to do that before you pulled it off.
I gotcha. You do live to fight another day. Is all. Yeah, we agree on that. Any other amendments? I would ask colleagues that are listening and not with us today. To minimize kind of the sausage making on the floor to the extent that y'all can make sure you've talked to the administration. And socialized it with colleagues. That way we can move through that as quickly as possible on Tuesday. That would be much appreciated. All right, Ms. Kempson-Wright, any other legislative items? That concludes everything, right?
That is it.
All right, colleagues, announcements, anything for the good of the order? Mr. Bond.
Just like to wish everyone a celebratory Juneteenth. Juneteenth now a national holiday. It is the day that slaves in Texas found out they had been freed by the Emancipation Proclamation 2 years later. Think about that. So that's this Saturday, the 19th. So I think this is the first time we've celebrated as a national holiday. And on Sunday, come out to the Family Food Fest that we're sponsoring for Father's Day. Fathers will be there preparing food, and there will be a contest. And no, I will not be entering this year. I came close to winning once, and my heart is broken. So I will not make world-famous spaghetti again. But I will eat other people's food that's there. And so it's for a good cause. All contributions go to various charities, and it's this Sunday. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bond. Any other announcements for the good of the order?
Just one more. Yes, tomorrow for District 5, we are having a town hall on the solid waste fee increase for anybody from the public who has questions. We'll also be live streaming it, but we will be at Park Grounds, which is located in Reynoldstown, from 5 to 6:30, and DPW as well as somebody from Finance will be in attendance to answer questions. So please come if you have any. Thank you.
Council President.
Just to note, if the weather will cooperate, the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra is playing its first of 2 free concerts in Piedmont Park tonight. 7:30 start, both this Wednesday and next. So come out if you can with a blanket.
Yep, tonight's music theme is Paris, and next week's is Hollywood. So District 6 welcomes everybody. Reminder that 6 p.m. tonight, I'll be in here doing the budget hearing. Colleagues, I want to thank you for your work and participation in the hearings thus far, and we will see how this goes on Tuesday. But we stand adjourned. Thank you.